All right, I'm curious about this Chaos Space Marine from the future. What does he know? What happens in that future? Gieleman asked. Everyone leaned forward. Who wouldn't be interested in a future 10,000 years ahead? Prepare yourselves, Axis warned. Messages from the future can cut deep. They nodded and followed him to the Morning Star. Khorne, who had been posted as ship guard, stepped forward to greet them personally. Greetings, great Gene Father, he said with a wide grin. Long time no see, fighting brothers. He clasped Axis's hand, then turned to Kratos. Kratos, long time. You should come join my legion, develop under me. I could make you my deputy Lord Commander. Kratos laughed and embraced him. No chance. I belong to the Golden Legion. You brat, how dare you poach my man? Axis teased, smiling. From now on, Khorne is also my deputy Lord Commander. They chatted for a few minutes longer. Then Axis led them to a sealed chamber on the ship. The door was covered in golden psychic runes and ringed with a large Geller field isolation array. Kasha had hand-carved the containment to suppress whatever lay inside. One prisoner was a Chaos-chosen champion, the other a Gene Seed Primarch who had fallen to the ruinous powers, both dangerous in their own right. To be safe, Axis had locked them inside stasis. Who first, Lorgar or the Chaos Space Marine? He asked. Lorgar can wait. We know him, Gieleman said. Let's see the Chaos Space Marine from 10,000 years in the future. Sanguinius and Chagatai Khan agreed. Axis nodded and ordered the stasis field opened. When the field dropped and the figure stepped out, Kratos stiffened. The face was painfully familiar. Khorne, his brother-in-arms, but corrupted. The plate of butcher's nails embedded in the skull and the malignant aura of chaos made it clear this was no longer the man they knew. Khorne, who stood beside Axis, sighed softly, the weight of seeing that twisted reflection plain on his face. It was blasphemy, a mockery of everything he stood for. Kratos clapped him on the shoulder. That's not you, Khorne, Kratos said firmly. He's a monster, twisted by chaos. Don't take him to heart. You're you, Axis's strongest gene seed offspring. Understood, brother, Khorne replied. This thing is the deepest offense to my honor. The corrupted Khorne introduced himself with a sneer as the chaos-chosen Chaos snorted. Utter hypocrisy. You don't know the true greatness of the Chaos Gods. You can't imagine the divine power they offer. Seeing his counterpart surrounded by brothers, successful and whole, stoked a raw, unnameable jealousy inside him. The butcher's nails had torn at his mind for 10,000 years. This man's life was everything he had been denied. Sanguinius stepped forward, studying the newcomer. He's not Axis's gene seed, he observed. His lineage is Angrons, warhounds. Chaos laughed. What a rarity to see Archangel Sanguinius in person. In my universe, you died a miserable death. The reaction around the room hardened. Sanguinius dead? Gieleman asked, taking a step forward. Tell us, how did Sanguinius die? Chaos savored the moment. Ha ha ha. And you, reawakened Gieleman, don't flatter yourself. In my timeline, you're not alive so much as animated, a shell of a man. Axis's jaw tightened as he listened. From the Chaos Khan's words, their mention of how Gieleman lay in stasis on Macragge, Axis inferred much. In that future, Gieleman had not yet been revived by High Mago's Belisarius call. The 13th Black Crusade hadn't yet begun, the Great Rift had not opened, the Ark of Omen and the other psychic events had not happened. Lionel Johnson had not awoken. The timeline they were hearing about was different from their present. Our prospects don't sound good, Chagatai Khan said grimly. Traitor, how do I fare in that future? Dead? Hollow? Chaos only jeered. The more you push, the less I'll tell you. He never finished. Kasha, standing close by, reached out and unleashed a sliver of the divine power she had inherited from the Emperor. It burned through the Chaos-Chosen's defenses, a flare of light that seared his soul and body. Chaos emitted a bestial scream, half agony and half fury. If you want to suffer more, stay silent, Kasha said icily. Otherwise, I'll take delight in your pain. Axis crouched in front of the convulsing Chaos-Chosen. Khorne, he said quietly, answer me honestly, and I'll grant you something you've wanted for a long time. The twisted warrior roared. My wish? To hack down the false emperor on the golden throne. No, Axis replied, tugging reflexively at the butcher's nails at the back of the man's head. That's not your real wish. Your real wish is Angron's death, to rid yourself of those filthy dreadlocks and the gods that chain you. Every time Axis looked at the corrupted Khorne, he saw hatred, envy, longing, and a jealous fury that had festered for a lifetime. People broke when they were faced with better versions of themselves. This Khorne was collapsing under the strain. Axis had an idea. If chaos could corrupt Space Marines, could his own internal chi energy reverse that corruption? If the Chaos Force small vendors could undermine the Empire, why couldn't he try to reclaim one of their own? You jest, Chaos spat. How could I betray the Blood God? Is that truly the life you want? Axis pressed. Endless slaughter, no honor, only chanting skulls for the Skull Throne, blood for the Blood God. The butcher's nails steal you, day after day. You are a weapon shaped by others, a pawn in someone else's will. Did the Blood God ever care whether you lived or died? You were sent here because you were expendable. Chaos's expression flickered. For the first time there was doubt. Axis placed his palm against the Chaos-chosen skull and channeled his chi energy inward. He poured life force into the parts of a mind frayed by 10,000 years of butcher's nails, beginning to repair the damage. I've seen you back in the Warhounds, Axis murmured. The butcher's nails were the beginning, Angron the source. You were a glory-loving warrior. So am I. If you choose, I can undo this. I can transform you back into a proper space marine. I can even implant my gene seed in you, take you as my son. The room fell silent. Chaos hesitated, torn. The Blood God's call had been everything he had known for 10 millennia. The idea of abandoning it was blasphemy. Yet the impulse Axis had named, the wish to be free of rage and manipulation, stirred something deep within him. I offer you a choice, Axis added softly. A life of your own making, not one chosen by chaos. The corrupted warrior's eyes cleared. For a moment, the rage-relentless voice that had bellowed through 10,000 years softened. I am awake, he whispered, almost incredulous. I've woken from the endless fury and slaughter. This isn't what I wanted. Help me. Free me of the Chaos Gods or kill me. Axis smiled. Heh, I'll help you. Chapter 262, Khorne's Confession, Future Intelligence, and the Bizarre Mindset of the Evil God. A part of my soul was placed upon the brass throne by the Blood God. You cannot purify me. The rest of my soul is completely branded by Khorne, Chaos Khorne said. He was a chosen of Khorne, not one of the full Daemon princes. Still, he carried the mark of the Blood God. To be honest, he never expected this gene seed Primarch from another universe to want to recruit him. The other's power was strange, but Khorne did not believe anything could stand against the Chaos Gods. Khorne, after all, was among the oldest and most powerful. At least my energy can help you clear your head for a while, Axis said. Isn't it worth a try? You want to purify me because you want future intelligence, right? I'm clear-headed now. I can tell you everything. Chaos Khorne took a breath and revealed the futures he had seen. First, Robert Guilliman. You were wounded in a duel with Fulgrim, and though rescued by your gene seed offspring, you became a walking dead man. In my universe, you lie in a deep sleep on Macragge. Then there's Sanguinius. Soon you will return to Holy Terra and, along with the Emperor, launch a boarding action on Horus's vengeful spirit. Before the Emperor meets Horus, you will meet Horus first, and you will be killed by him. After your death, your gene seed offspring will be afflicted by a terrible scourge called the Black Rage. They will imagine themselves as you and every enemy as Horus, flinging themselves into your fight at terrible cost. The Blood Angels will be tormented by bloodthirst and consumed by the Black Rage. Khorne spoke quickly, laying out the fates of the two gene seed Primarchs. Other Chaos Space Marines might know little of the Blood Angels' secrets, but Khorne had always hungered after Sanguinius and the Blood Angels' bloodlust. Any Blood Angel who bent the knee to Khorne gained terrible, powerful blessings. Khorne revered their berserker ferocity. As Khorne's chosen, Khorne had hunted Blood Angels and their successor chapters himself. Guilliman stared at Chaos Khorne, then at Sanguinius beside him. Their futures were bleak. Perhaps both would die, one truly, the other trapped in a living death. I'm fine, Guilliman. If this is the future I must bear, then I will, Sanguinius said. In my world you didn't completely die, Sanguinius. Only your physical body perished. Khorne once claimed that all gene seed Primarchs are subspace gods. For some reason you became one too. You can influence reality, helping your gene seed offspring from beyond. You manifest a golden angel named Sanguino to aid your legion in battle, Chaos Khorne continued. Sanguinius's condition was unique. According to Khorne, the Emperor's power in that future had been eroded to the point that, in some regards, it was no weaker than a chaos god, able to create demonic legions and living saints. Sanguinius could also alter his gene seed offspring directly. He had blessed Mephiston personally, and the chapter master Dante lived on for 1,500 years, far longer than any ordinary space marine. In Khorne's universe, Khorne craved Sanguinius and his bloodied angels. "What about me? Am I dead?" Chagatai Khan asked. "You are not dead," Khan said. "You are one of the missing gene seed Primarchs. While rescuing space marines taken by the Dark Eldar, you plunged into the Eldar webway and were lost. The White Scars believe you hunt the Dark Eldar in the webway. 10,000 years have passed. Neither you nor any word of you has returned." Kasha's face changed. Lost in the webway? Axis was a friend of the Eldar and a favored guest of the Laughing God, the true master of the webway. If someone were merely lost there, Axis could pull them out. Did Axis and his allies not exist in that other world? Chogoris looked at Axis with surprise, too. From their earlier meetings, he knew Axis could use the webway. It was impossible he'd be trapped there for 10,000 years if Axis existed in that universe. In his world, Kasha, Kratos, and I don't exist. There is no Golden Legion. Among the traitor Primarchs, Magnus and Perturabo are present. The 2nd and 11th Legions were purged by the Emperor. They simply don't exist during the Great Heresy, Khan said. Axis shrugged and explained the intelligence he had gathered to the Primarchs, assuring Chagatai, "If it were my world, I could pull you out of the webway in minutes." "I find it strange, too. This world is different from the one I know. Maybe every Primarch has a different fate. We can't simply compare it to my reality. Also, Lord Axis, Khorne in that world seems extremely interested in you. Be careful." As a chosen, Khan could sense the blood god's emotions. Khorne showed more interest in Axis than even in Sanguinius. Being noticed by the 4 Chaos Gods was dangerous. Once they set their eyes on you, their corruption was near inescapable. "He's naturally interested," Axis said. "I was lost in the warp for 100 years. During that time, I had a conversation with Khorne. I fought his avatar and killed it. That excited him. He praised me. But don't worry, his power can't corrupt me." Greater daemons and demon princes were not always slavish to their gods. Skarbrand had once struck Khorne himself, landing a blow that left a mark on the blood god's armor, and was hurled across the warp for days. Khorne despised sneak attacks. He valued open, honorable slaughter. The 4 Chaos Gods all had strange, particular minds. "That's to be expected, Lord Axis. Khorne admires warriors of great martial prowess. Even if a mortal does not worship him, Khorne will grant blessings. I know of one ultramarine who in the future will receive Khorne's favor despite being a devout servant of the Emperor. The blessing lets him heal by absorbing life from the enemies he dismembers and grants some resistance to warp energy. He defeated a daemon prince who had not fully ascended and killed a powerful orc war boss. He even crushed a warp device with his bare hands, enduring warp energies that would have corrupted any ordinary space marine. From what I can tell, that space marine was blessed by both the Emperor and Khorne." Axis was a little speechless. Guilliman's mouth hung open in disbelief. Axis had already guessed who Khorne meant. His fighting style matched what Khorne described. Guilliman could scarcely imagine his gene seed offspring receiving a Chaos God's blessing while remaining loyal to the Imperium. "Impossible. My gene seed offspring blessed by a Chaos God?" Guilliman blurted. "It happens. Slanesh once granted me a blessing," Axis said with a shrug. Small bargains with the Chaos Gods sometimes brought useful boons and curses. If an ultramarine like Titus had been treated unfairly enough, he might have rebelled and turned to Khorne long ago. The Imperium's future persecution of space marines was not insignificant. "Tell us about the other Primarchs. Tell us everything you know," Sanguinius said. "All right." Khan looked at them and spoke again. "Rogel Dorn vanished in a war after the heresy. He left only a severed hand, and his enemies were mere chaos space marines, nothing a Primarch couldn't handle. Leman Russ stayed on Fenris for 200 years, then announced he would leave the Space Wolves and journey into the Eye of Terror to seek the legendary Tree of Life. He hoped to use it to free the Emperor from the Golden Throne." "Wait, free Father? What happened after Father took the Golden Throne? Why would he need saving?" Guilliman interrupted. The Emperor was mortally wounded fighting Horus, almost killed. He seated himself upon the golden throne. Without it, his body would have died. The future Imperium is dark beyond measure. The Emperor became an undying, living corpse, Khan said. Such knowledge about the Golden Throne and the Emperor's fate was not commonly known. Even Khan only knew fragments. The revelation shattered the worldview of everyone present. Everyone except Axis. Even Kasha looked stunned. Impossible. Father is immortal. How could he become an undying corpse? With Father's power, Horus couldn't have overcome him, Kasha protested. At that time, the Emperor didn't face Horus alone. Horus was empowered by the 4 Chaos Gods. It was like fighting Horus and the Chaos Gods together. The battle even warped the warp itself. The details are unclear, but Horus was defeated and the Emperor grievously wounded. He sat upon the Golden Throne and never fully recovered. 10,000 years later, his body has decayed, but his psychic power still holds sway over the Imperium, Khan said. Sanguinius's expression hardened. Continue with the rest. We'll discuss this worse news later. Lionel Johnson was ambushed when he returned to Caliban. A traitor named Luther betrayed him, and Caliban was destroyed. The Lion's fate is sealed away by the Dark Angels. They keep it close. Vulcan became disenchanted with the Imperium and secluded himself. He later reappeared once during the Beast War and died in a mutual destruction with an orc war boss. Korax pursued Lorgar into the warp and is missing. Ferrus Manus was slain by Fulgrim. Khan's voice was steady but grim. By that point, all the loyal Primarchs were either dead, missing, or asleep. Humanity entered its mortal age, and the Imperium began to decay. Believe me, you would not want to see what that Imperium looks like. It's a realm that might make you long to destroy it. Chapter 263, Axis is Hope, and will surely eliminate the dark future. Khan had told the Gene Seed Primarchs how depraved and corrupt the future empire would be. The national religion, the Adepta Sororitas, the Astra Militarum, desperate mortals, and endless wars. Silence met his words, an awful, stunned silence. None of the Primarchs present had imagined humanity's future could sink so low. The empire they had built would, after the Emperor and the Primarchs left, warp into something unrecognizable. That is your world, Khan, Axis said. That desperate 41st millennium, 10,000 years from now, it is not ours. Ferrus Manus did not die on Istvan Vith Perturabo, the Primarch of the Iron Warriors, did not betray the Emperor. The 12th Legion is my Gene Seed progeny. Magnus did not destroy the Webway. Those were the Chaos Sorcerers under Horus. The Emperor and Magnus sit together on the Golden Throne and are repairing the Webway. Humanity still has hope. 10,000 years from now, our universe will not be like the one you described. If he didn't give them confidence now, the Primarch's morale would have broken altogether. Ha ha! Axis is right, Chagatai Khan said. That is your universe, not ours. We will defeat Horus. We will not let the Emperor be wounded and forced to sit on the Golden Throne. Magnus and the Emperor can repair the Webway together. If the future really turned out as Khan described, there would be nothing to save. But their world was different, at least in crucial ways. Several individual fates had already diverged. Chagoris is right, Guilliman agreed, his expression firm. Fate is not immutable. Now that we know, we will stop it. The future will not be dark and hopeless. Even Sanguinius, who had always believed in destiny and in his own death at his brother's hands, looked resolved. They refused to let humanity slide into despair. Khan watched them, emotions raw. He had once chased glory in the same way, until that demonic Gene Father returned. Yet here, he thought, there was still hope. I will tell you everything I know, every battle to come, especially about the Great Heresy, Chaos Khan said. I can give you details. All Primarchs, you must change that dark future and save humanity from extinction. Axis' counterpart from another world, the Golden Khan standing at his side, nodded. My other self? I promise, humanity's future will not become that. I will fight to the death by the Emperor's side. Kasha alone forced a smile, looking at Axis with a strange, inward sorrow. The others didn't know why, but Kasha did. If Axis had not existed in their universe, it would have turned into the bleak future Chaos Khan described. It was Axis who had prevented the second Primarch from falling under Zidon's sway, saving that legion. It had been Axis who brokered peace between Leman Russ and Magnus on Prospero, who pushed the Intellect Library plan and became Magnus's ally. Axis had eliminated the greatest hidden danger, Angron, allowing the 12th Legion to become the Golden Legion. Axis's presence had led to a crushing Imperial victory in the Second Zidane War. Even during Axis's century-long disappearance and Kasha's own 100 years of sleep, events had begun to drift back toward the old trajectory. Kasha had a quiet thought. If Axis had never gone missing, perhaps the Horus heresy might never have happened at all. After Axis returned, he had reversed the course of the heresy. Horus no longer dared launch reckless offensives. He feared exposing himself and drawing Axis's wrath. Fulgrim had been slain by Axis. The demon's soul had fled, but the Chaos Gods had not easily reclaimed his form. Because of Axis, the Iron Warriors and the Second Legion had remained in the Empire. Axis was the fulcrum of hope. Without him, Kasha might have been locked away on Holy Terra forever, buried in darkness. According to Khorne, Horus will soon lead his forces to attack Holy Terra, Chagatai said. We should return to Terra and set up defenses now. With all of us in Axis's power there, if Horus dares come, we could kill him without the Emperor having to intervene. No, Axis shook his head. Horus will not attack Holy Terra easily. Terra's defenses now were nothing like the broken forces of the old timeline. The Imperial Fist stood there, an entire legion, and 3 more legions, damaged but still formidable. Magnus and the Emperor were holding the line. If Horus attacked, the Emperor could come down from the Golden Throne and finish matters. Worst of all for Horus was the uncertainty. Axis might suddenly return to Terra and intervene. Axis had already clashed with avatars of Slaanesh and Khorne. That kind of power was not something Horus wanted to gamble against, especially with the Emperor present. Indeed, Guilliman admitted, the Empire is in a far better state than the other world. Horus will not risk a direct strike on Terra. If Horus tries to drag the war out and use a warp storm to erode our frontiers, Chagatai mused, what then? If the war drags on, it doesn't favor Horus either, Axis replied. The longer the conflict lasted, the more advantage the Emperor and Magnus gained. They could steadily repair the webway, and the Pharaoh system could mend the flaws of the Astronomicon. Even a fierce warp storm could be mitigated if a safe navigation route were reopened. Between repairs to the webway and improvements to the hyperspace engine, humanity could find alternatives to the warp. Once the webway and hyperspace were widely available and humanity escaped the warp, Horus's refuge would vanish. Axis could not see where Horus's victory might come from. He had blocked nearly every possible path to victory. Once they recovered the Pharaoh system and Axis finished planting the remaining 4 mental trees, after those 4 gene seed Primarchs rose to new heights, Horus's chances would shrink even further. The one who must act now is Horus, Guilliman said. We should focus on bringing the Pharaoh system back to the Empire and recovering the traitor Lorgar. As for this Chaos Khan, we should detain him for the time being. We can't be sure everything he says is true. He was skeptical of Axis's claim that Chaos Space Marines could be purified and turned back into normal Space Marines. Axis's words might be a ruse to pry open the Chaos Khan's mind for information. I usually keep my word, Axis said. Detention is acceptable, but I want to try purifying him first. If you must try, Lord Axis, do it, Chaos Khan urged. The other Primarchs exchanged looks and consented. There was no harm in trying. Axis nodded and had Kasha fetch a bottle of mental tree sap. He stuck a straw into it and handed it to Chaos Khan. Bite this straw, he instructed. If your body falters, drink the sap. It contains potent life energy and will save you. Do it, Lord Axis, Chaos Khan said. Whether you succeed or fail, I hope you can save humanity. If it fails, at least help me break free from the Chaos God's control. Axis inhaled deeply, then shifted into Super Saiyan-like intensity, an aura flare of power. He placed his palm on Chaos Khan's head and began the first painful task, pulling the butcher's nails from his skull one by one. As he worked, Axis used his own life energy to shield the man's brain. He had done this before on the second Primarch. The motions were familiar. Axis drew a deep breath, and the Super Saiyan golden aura rolled out to cloak him from head to toe. The light was blinding, turning the bridge into daylight, and the life energy that poured from him felt almost tangible. He was about to unleash chi steeped in life force. The legendary Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 4 were unsuitable. One drew on corrupt power, the other on savage fury. He needed the calm, ordinary Super Saiyan state. Its purity was nearly perfect. Even those Primarchs who had already seen Axis's power, Kasha and Chaos Khan of the Golden Legion, stared again in shock. Guilliman's gaze sharpened, Chagatai Khan tightened his grip on his blade, and Sanguinius watched the light with something like reverence. This was the power of life itself, great pure ki. "I'm starting. If it gets too much, scream," Axis said, his voice ringing sacred in the glow. He set his palm, burning with golden chi, on Chaos Khan's head, a nightmare of twisted spikes and blasphemous runes. The instant Axis's energy touched him, Khan released a shrill, inhuman scream. It wasn't simple physical pain. It was the tearing and burning of soul. The chaos within him writhed and lashed out like venomous snakes flung into boiling oil. Dark, blood-tinted light and nauseous warp filth seeped from under his skin, trying to corrupt Axis's hand and coalescing into screaming, twisted phantoms on his scalp. "Hold him steady," Axis barked. Chaos Khan reacted fastest. He thrust himself forward and used his massive arms to pin Khan's struggling bulk. Guilliman and Chagatai Khan moved in to secure limbs. Sanguinius laid a gentle hand on the corrupted Primarch's shoulder. A soft, firm psychic aura spread, forming an invisible barrier that blunted some of the escaping chaos whispers. At Magnus's urging, Sanguinius had developed potent psychic gifts, and now his power was pure and sanctifying, a comfort against the rot. The touch steadied Khan. Axis ignored the chaos counterstroke that would drive a mortal mad. He concentrated, and the golden life chi, sharp as a surgeon's scalpel, probed into Chaos Khan's skull. He sought the metallic nightmares buried in the brain tissue, the butcher's nails. The first nail was enveloped by life energy and yanked free. Khan's eyes rolled back, his body convulsed, fighting, but he was held down. With a sound like flesh being torn, a thick, rusted nail slick with dark blood came away in Axis's hand. Khan arched, choking as the brain tissue that had been crushed and twisted around the nail collapsed and necrosed. Black, chaos-tainted ichor sprayed from the wound. "Infuse it with life ki," Axis roared, pouring a flood of golden light into the gaping hole. The necrotic tissue dissolved like frost under the sun. The life force washed it away. Healthy cells, stimulated by the chi, divided and regenerated at an astonishing speed, filling the void. The process sent violent neural impulses shuddering through Khan, but it worked. This was only the beginning. Each butcher's nail was an anchor driven into both brain and soul, braided with chaos. Pulling them out was more than a wound, it was a spiritual rip. Without life ki, extraction would simply kill the host. 10,000 years of corruption, of chaos authority and the god's power, had fused into these nails. When Axis drew the second and third nails, the chaos backlash reached a fever pitch. Beneath Khan's skin, 1,000 venomous things writhed. Vile blood seeped from every orifice, inhuman curses and roars burst from his throat. The air thickened and chilled with the stench of rot. "Suck! Quickly! Suck the juice!" Khan's remaining will seized the straw in his mouth and tore it between his teeth. Mental tree juice, liquid life, poured down his burning throat. Warm currents of vitality surged through him at once, like alloy reinforcements hammered into a crumbling dam. His collapsing tissues steadied, the trend toward disintegration reversed. Groans of relief, life's sound, replaced some of the cursing. With each nail removed, his condition steadied, until at last the final butcher's nail came free. Axis's chi nourished and guided the brain as it regrew and mended. "How do you feel?" Axis asked. He had learned caution after a previous clumsy attempt that had cost another Primarch some memory. This time, he had been careful. "Better than ever, Lord Axis," Chaos Khan managed, offering a pale, shaking smile. "Then, Khan of another universe, your physical chains are broken. Now the true purification begins. Do it, Lord Axis. Succeed or die trying." Axis nodded. The golden chi flared hotter and denser. He did not withdraw his hand. Instead, he poured even purer, more concentrated life force into Khan, not merely to heal, but to purge and drive out the corruption. Khan lunged, body springing against the Primarchs holding him. His inhuman roar vibrated the bridge. Axis's life chi hammered at the chaos within, and the blessing of Khorne rose up in answer, blood-red power like a tide. Dark sanguine energy coalesced into roaring skull phantoms and gnawed at Axis's light. Inside Khan, two forces tore at one another, the cleansing life ki and the furious, sanguinary blessing. "No, blood for the blood god. Skulls for the Skull Throne. Chaos Khan's cries fragmented into savage litany and human fragments. His consciousness felt split, chaos madness anchored in one half, while the other half, feeble and atomic, clung to the man Khan had been, buoyed by Axis's life force. Through that rent in Khan's mind, Axis glimpsed the demon on the skull throne. The connection yanked Axis's spirit before Khorne himself, a vast, slaughter-hung deity facing him. "We meet again, Axis, my most anticipated opponent," Khorne said, his voice a clash of steel and thunder. He watched Axis with eager hunger. War, blood, slaughter, those things pleased him above all. Axis's style, his readiness to strike, his refusal to bow, these were virtues in Khorne's eyes. The god admired him, even in opposition. "I look forward to the fight too," Axis said evenly. "You're a notorious chaos god, but undeniably a pure warrior. I know my limits. I'm no god. I cannot face your true body. Even here, in this universe, you are only a fragment. You are a multiversal power." "Ha ha! If you wish, I can find ways to make you a god. We could be good friends," Khorne said, delighted. His friends were those who fought, ferocity and conflict as companionship. Axis stiffened at the offer, not for fear of trickery. Khorne did not trick, only at the frankness of it. Still, he was not here for bargains. "I'm not here to parley," Axis said. "I'm here to remake Khan." "No problem, my friend. Go ahead. I have preserved a fragment of his soul. If you need it, take it," Khorne said, and a sliver of warped soul flame slid toward Axis. Axis accepted it, feeling oddly at ease. Among the four chaos gods, Khorne appealed to him most, maybe to all science. He took the fragment. "One more thing," Khorne added, smiling without warmth. "It wasn't I who sent this Khan here, nor the other three gods." "What? You mean the Emperor sent him?" Axis asked, the expression on his face hardening. "Not the Emperor, my friend. The one on the golden throne is not the Emperor at all. It is the Dark King." Chapter 265, A Great Sacrifice. The sacrifice of all mankind, the King of Darkness is bound to be born. The Dark King? It was the Dark King who sent the corrupted Khorne from another world into this realm. Axis stared in shock. He had assumed it was a plot by the four gods. The Emperor had once hinted that seating himself upon the golden throne and facing humanity's bleak, hopeless future was itself a poisonous plot of the Dark King. The final curse smothering the universe, this, the Emperor had said, was the Dark King's ultimate conspiracy against humanity. "The Dark King, why would he do this?" Axis asked, his voice low. "My friend, to be precise, it's a warning," Khorne replied. "The Emperor's grand blueprint for humanity is a cataclysmic sacrifice. Psychers, space marines, mortals, countless races across the galaxy, even he himself are offerings. Everything is sacrificed to forge a cold, dead, soulless empire ruled by despair. When he is driven to the brink on the golden throne, when his will stretches into infinite agony and despair, when the wails and faith of trillions of souls converge, his inner darkness, that supreme being we call the Dark King, will awaken." Khorne laid out the Dark King's true nature plainly. The Emperor's birth, he said, was only a part of the Dark King's vast design. Could a few fragile ancient psychers on a single planet truly hope to bind the supreme deity of the warp inside a mortal body? It was a fool's dream. The whole thing was a colossal sacrificial ritual. The rise of humanity itself had been orchestrated to serve that ritual. Humanity's ascendance had driven entire species to the brink. Even those who bent the knee were not spared. The Emperor appeared to be saving mankind, but in reality, he was dragging it into an abyss from which there would be no return. Humanity was the executioner of the Dark King's plan. When the executioner had slaughtered enough lives, he himself would be the final sacrifice. The Emperor would ultimately become the Dark King. "You mean the Dark King is warning the Emperor, forcing him not to upset the predetermined fate and to accept that dark ending?" Axis pressed. "Exactly," Khorne said. "The Dark King saw you, this variable Axis. You come from beyond this world. Your power system, your actions, the hope you bring, they are enormous interference in his plan. He sent Khorne to test the Emperor's response. The Dark King is forcing the Emperor to concede to the plan, even to personally eliminate you, this unstable factor." Axis thought of the Emperor's confessions. What Khorne said fit. Moreover, Khorne's nature made him a reliable witness. For him, lies were shameful and intolerable. One thing could be confirmed. The Emperor of this universe would not be permanently bound to the Golden Throne like his counterparts in other worlds. Axis had spent 10 years strengthening him with chi and had helped him consume the spirit tree fruit. Physically, he was far stronger than any emperor in a parallel reality. Even if gravely wounded, with Axis present, the emperor could be dragged back from the throne's curse by the chi of life. That was why the Dark King had sent the Khorne of the future. It was a warning to force the emperor into his sacrificial destiny. You mean, the emperor is going to deal with me now? No. The emperor is protecting you, almost at any cost, Khorne said, his tone carrying a strange approval. Right now he has to burn the souls of thousands of psychers every day to amplify his power and to suppress the Dark King stirring within him. The Dark King has given him a choice. Either accept the arrangement, or humanity dies now. The Dark King could be born immediately, devour the souls of all mankind, and wipe the species from existence. So tell me, if the Emperor had to choose between you and humanity, who do you think he would choose? Axis didn't need to think. The Emperor's love for humanity was absolute. To save mankind, he would sacrifice everything. If the Dark King truly presented such a choice, Huang Laohan would likely choose to act against himself without hesitation. The problem was time. What they lacked most was time. The doom of the human race was sealed the moment the Dark King chose humanity, Khorne said. Impossible. I will stop him. I will defeat the Dark King. I will shatter this fate. Axis said, voice hard with resolve. Khorne laughed, loud, booming, and delighted. The whole brass throne seemed to tremble. Well said. That is precisely why I respect you, Axis. But you must understand, the Dark King is formless right now. He hasn't been born. No one knows where he might appear. No one can find a trace of him. He has no substantial form. How do you defeat an enemy that doesn't yet exist? Wait until he is born. If the Dark King is born, the entire human race will be annihilated. If he is not born, you have no way to defeat him. Axis objected. Khorne laid out the insoluble paradox. To defeat the Dark King, you would, in effect, have to let him be born, and the cost of his birth would be humanity's extinction. It was an impossible dilemma. All right, enough for today, Khorne said after a moment. Go. Take what spoils of war you have and return to your battlefield. I look forward to seeing your clash with the Dark King. That will be a war to shake the foundations of the galaxy. What does the birth of the Dark King have to do with you? Won't you four gods be destroyed too when he comes? As far as I know, the Dark King marks the end of the universe. If he is born, everything burns, Axis asked. Why should I fear? Khorne replied, untroubled. On the contrary, I eagerly await battle with the Dark King. Success or failure matters little. I crave the fight itself. His voice thrummed with pure bloodlust. Kid, he seemed to say, you really think I care about some theory of universal annihilation? If the Dark King tried, he'd have to get past Khorne's corpse first. How can I prevent the Dark King's birth, or at least delay it? Axis demanded. He didn't doubt Khorne's words. The Emperor had already admitted the Dark King had struck at him in secret several times. What he needed most now was more time. It's simple. Follow his plan, Khorne said. You're not asking me to join Horus, are you? No. You won't join Horus. I know that well. You just need to stay out of it. The Dark King doesn't want to force the Emperor into desperation outright, so he sent Khorne from another timeline to provoke the Emperor into confronting you. Haven't you noticed? The Emperor has always tried to send you away, hinting repeatedly that you should stay far from Holy Terra, far from this war. And you have been strengthening the Loyalist forces. Now the Dark King's patience with you is exhausted. Khorne made it clear, he had no intention of corrupting Axis. He saw Axis as a worthy opponent, the kind he longed to face. When they first met, he had hoped for something else, but after that exhilarating battle he had changed his mind. Axis was precisely the rival he wanted. Axis's face went cold. If that was true, all his efforts might have been in vain. Had he been playing into the Dark King's design all along? The choice is yours, Axis, Khorne said. I've only told you the truth about how this will play out. Whether you believe it or not is for you to decide. Actually, I think the solution is pretty simple. Isn't it just a matter of beating them both up and then shoving one of them onto the Golden Throne? If Horus can do it, so can I. I'll beat Horus, and I'll beat the Emperor, Axis said after a moment's thought. Cyan's thought in such blunt, direct lines. Besides, the Emperor practically asked for a good thrashing, so I'll give him one. He planned to go straight back to Holy Terra, take Horus out when he arrived, then force the Emperor onto the Golden Throne. Khorne cared about results, not ritual. Whoever put Huang Lao Han on the Golden Throne was irrelevant, so long as the Emperor sat there. Once the Emperor was planted on the Golden Throne, Axis would take the Empire's problems in stride and found his own faith. As for Guilliman's Legion to Chapter reforms, Axis would flip them off. This Empire is mine, he thought. Among the Gene Seed Primarchs, he could probably enlist Leman Russ, Magnus, Lion L. Johnson, and Sanguinius. If they understood his aim, they'd back him. Dorn, Calgar, even Jagatai Khan might be swayed. With his son at his side, only Guilliman, Ferrus Manus, Vulcan, and Corax were uncertain. Khorne fell utterly silent for several seconds. The skull fire in his brass throne seemed to freeze. Then, a deafening, almost manic laugh exploded out of him. The blood god rocked back and forth on his skull throne, huge hands battering the armrests made of skulls and metal, shattering a few of the massive demon skulls embedded there. Ha ha ha! You really outdid yourself, Axis. This is the Axis I know. Beat both those fools senseless? Ha ha! Only a mind like yours could dream up such a perfect plan. Khorne had expected that such a cruel truth would crush Axis, send him into despair or doubt. He had not expected the boy's answer to be so brutal, so straightforward, so gloriously violent, so pleasing to Khorne's taste. Axis's logic exceeded every caution Khorne had imagined, and it exhilarated him. Hey, it's hard for me too, all right? I can't kill Horus, and I can't not kill him, Axis said with a helpless shrug. The Emperor told me long ago that if the day ever came when I had to strike him, I mustn't hold back. I won't. Saiyans don't know the meaning of going easy. Khorne's grin widened. Fine. But you must understand why the Dark King wants the Emperor on the Golden Throne. The point isn't the throne itself. It's to plunge humanity into despair. If humanity carries the constant burden of extinction, if they live in endless dread, they will pray. Those prayers become the national religion. The faith energy gathered will be immense, and the Emperor can use that faith to hold the Dark King at bay. Axis listened. Khorne's voice grew grave, still crude, but clear with an old, terrible logic. I see what you want, Axis. You want to temper your soul with humanity's faith and ascend, become a god, take power enough to stand against us, against the Emperor. On that point, I'd even be willing to help. But you need to know this. The other three Chaos Gods will never allow it. The Dark King will never allow it. There is a reason he has used every means to eliminate internal human gods. Humanity is his bait, his feast. He will not allow anyone else to eat that cake. You mean the disappearances and deaths of the Gene Seed Primarchs over 10,000 years? All of that was the Dark King's work? Axis's expression shifted. Exactly, Khorne said. Your plan can work at first. I can guarantee the Dark King will allow the Emperor to be placed on the Golden Throne. But if you then try to build your own faith and replace the Emperor to form a united human nation, he will not permit it. He needs all the Gene Seed Primarchs gone, so humanity will plunge into the Age of Mortals. You, your son, those Primarchs, your kind, are what he will crush. He will trap you, stage accidents, do whatever it takes to make you disappear. Axis's brows knit. Pieces fell into place. Why not one Gene Seed Primarch escape the 10,000 years of darkness? Vulcan appeared briefly during the Beast Wars and then was gone. Leman Russ suddenly left his wolves, went searching for the Tree of Life, and entered the Eye of Terror, never to return. Corax blocked Lorgar's door. Jagatai Khan vanished into the webway. Rogel Dorn inexplicably left only a severed hand behind before disappearing. Lionel Johnson was ambushed on Caliban and fell into a deep sleep, though Luther did not worship the Chaos Gods. Guilliman foresaw his death and left Belisarius' call as a contingency. It had all been guided by a hidden, malign hand. You understand now? Khorne asked. If the four of us had wanted humanity wiped out, no race could have withstood it. In fact, at a crucial moment 10,000 years hence, when Guilliman was about to awaken, even we, took steps to nudge things along. Khorne showed a vision to Axis. Macragge 10,000 years in the future. Robert Guilliman, clad in the armor of fate forged by Belisarius' call, fell under the blade of the seer Yvraine and was reborn. At that critical instant, it wasn't chaos that prevented Guilliman's resurrection, but Calgar, until an unexpected arrival of Chaos Space Marines changed everything. Those Chaos forces surrounded Calgar, neutralized the Ultramarines, forced them to watch as the Eldari woman stabbed their father, and then Guilliman was miraculously resurrected. The vision was shown to Axis without embellishment. So the only Gene Seed Primarch who revived in that future did so because you meddled? Axis said, stunned. Exactly. We know everything. If the Chaos Gods had wanted to, we could have corrupted key figures on Macragge and sabotaged the resurrection without ever directly intervening. If Macragge hadn't been besieged, how could the Eldari have reached Guilliman? If those Chaos Space Marines hadn't shown up, Calgar could have killed Yvraine. It was our interference that held Calgar back and allowed the Eldari and the High Magos access to Guilliman. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been resurrected. Axis frowned. So why help resurrect Guilliman at all? To stop the Dark King, Khorne said simply. The Dark King's coming benefits no one. I long to fight him, but I'd rather he sleep longer, at least until I've settled some personal scores. Besides, the gods are not a single force. We fight, scheme, and stab each other's backs constantly. I hate Slaanesh more than most. If there was a chance to wound that purple pervert, I'd take it. Axis rubbed his temple. Saiyans were terrible at schemes. Maybe I should tell Guilliman and ask him to help come up with a solution. What do you think? Khorne snorted. You think Guilliman would believe you? He'd probably think I'd corrupted you and tell you to distrust me. To be honest, I didn't expect you to accept my words so readily. Axis's reply was blunt. I believe you because you're a pure warrior. Warriors sneer at tricks. That's what that blue bird man likes to do. The real reason, too, was that Axis had seen the future himself. Khorne's revelation matched what he already knew. Ha ha ha! Thank you for the compliment, Axis. You and your gene seed offspring please me. I've revealed a lot today. Don't you think some gratitude is in order? Khorne asked. What do you want? Axis asked. How about a few of your legion join my side? Khorne said. He coveted Axis's warriors. The gene seed was excellent. Go to hell. No way. You know our gene seed. Key energy has high resistance to the warp. But I can give you something else. Some spirit tree fruit, Axis offered. Khorne's eyes flickered. What would I want that for? I have no physical form to enjoy such things. If your gene seed offspring won't do, some gene seed will. Sacrifice a few hundred samples to me, and I'll bless your legion. I'm not picky. Axis balked. No, our private dealings are one thing, but I won't drag the legions into this. The spirit tree fruit, aren't the inferior fruits I grow outside. These are special. Plant one in your territory. A true tree of God. Interested? Khorne considered the idea. You mean such spirit tree fruit can be grown in the warp? If they can be, then I could grow them in your domain, Axis said. You could consume them, gift them to your greater demons and daemon princes. I'm willing to grow a special spirit tree in your brass throne. Khorne's grin returned, predatory and pleased. The idea of a god tree in his own realm, and the power it could yield, was tempting indeed. Chapter 267, The Fruit of the Divine Realm, Conspiring with the Goddess of Life. That's right, this is something truly extraordinary. It's a god fruit I brought from another universe. In that world, only true gods are qualified to enjoy it, and they have physical bodies. Axis changed the subject, making the core difficulty clear. But cultivating this divine fruit is extremely demanding. Ordinary planets can only produce a degraded form, the spirit tree fruit, and only by draining countless lives. Even that inferior product, if a mortal fully absorbs it, can extend life by 10,000 years and drastically increase strength. Only a true divine domain can nurture a perfect fruit. For example, he swept his hand to indicate Khorne's realm, the brass throne domain, mountains of corpses, seas of blood, rivers of magma. Your territory. Axis made the distinction deliberately. What grew in ordinary places was spirit tree fruit. What could grow in a genuine divine domain had to be called a fruit of God. Khorne's interest sharpened at Axis's explanation. I admit, your special fruit is impressive, Khorne rumbled. A mortal who consumes it, their vitality increases 10,000-fold. Their strength leaps. Fully absorbed, it could rival my greater demons. Its effect is almost like one of my divine blessings. He was clearly intrigued by the opportunity for collaboration. Only by combining our efforts can we cultivate a truly perfect fruit of God, Axis pressed, while the iron was hot. You provide the soil, your divine domain and its power, and I'll inject ki to stimulate the fruit's vigorous growth. Khorne tapped the armrest of his throne, the sound heavy and hollow. You say Nurgle's garden is the ideal place? That life-saturated source is the core of cosmic life energy? He admitted frankly the shortcomings of his own realm. It was a place of war, slaughter, blood, and savagery, not the origin of life. Nurgle's domain truly resonated with life's roots. Can you bear to hand this treasure to Nurgle? To let that fetid rotter have it for free? Axis sneered at the idea. He would work with Khorne. He respected the blood god's pure warrior nature. But Nurgle, his bloated, plague-ridden affection for life was intolerable. Khorne surprised him by defending Nurgle. He values life in his own way, the blood god said. It's just unique. Axis rolled his eyes. With those sores and that bulk, Father Nurgle's love could be forgiven. Among the four gods of chaos, Axis continued, Nurgle and I are the most straightforward. The real filth is that scheming blue birdman and the purple pervert, Tzeentch and Slaanesh. One's obsessed with conspiracies, the other is a hedonistic madman. Old slights still stung. Tzeentch's trickery had seduced some of Khorne's greater daemons, and Slaanesh's temptations had claimed a few champions. Brother Khorne, something this important can't be entrusted to others, Axis insisted. I don't trust Nurgle. Your realm will do. Khorne's doubt remained. He swept his gaze over the endless battlefield below his throne, crimson badlands, churning magma, bone-strewn mountains, rivers of blood. You really think this wretched place of mine can grow anything? Axis, do you misunderstand the nature of my domain? Axis cleared his throat. The warp is the materialization of the mental realm. Your brass throne is a genuine, divine domain. With your will, you could alter the local environment, create a small, vibrant oasis with lush growth. It shouldn't be impossible, right? Khorne's answer was blunt. That's not possible. Nurgle's garden is the optimal choice. Axis's eyes flicked. Then an idea struck him. Nurgle wasn't the only god of life. What if there's a goddess skilled in life energy who could help create an oasis inside your domain? Would that work? Khorne's burning eye sockets flared. He slammed the armrest. I see. You mean the Eldari life goddess Aisha. If the two of us work together, we can do it. Khorne considered the plan seriously. My strength is second to none among the four gods. I can't kill that fat old fool Nurgle easily, but I can hold him off. Then you can infiltrate his garden and take the goddess. It's perfect. Axis continued, smoothing over objections. If given the chance to escape Nurgle's care, she'll be willing. We're not imprisoning her. We're asking for aid in growing a tree. A wise being adapts. Cultivating the perfect fruit of God was central to Axis's ambitions. The Emperor's ascension and the balance between the Dark King and the Emperor made obtaining power by faith alone impossible in this universe. Axis needed another route. The fragments of the Eldari war god Kala Mensha Kaini might help, and the god fruit from the Dragon Ball universe contained pure divine power, essential if Axis wanted to break through to the Super Saiyan god level. A two-pronged approach was required. After the Emperor took the Golden Throne, Axis would collect war god fragments and cultivate the fruit. Khorne agreed readily. Fine, I have no interest in this life goddess. As long as she helps plant trees, that's enough. It's settled then, Axis said. Not so fast, Axis added quickly. We must plan. We're not the only ones who might be interested. Slaanesh could take advantage of us being tied up and snatch her. I can't out-snatch him. If he gets involved, she'll end up in a pleasure palace. Khorne's excitement dimmed. That's a problem. A spark lit in Axis's eyes. I have a plan. I will take part in the siege of Terra, but only to rescue other gene seed Primarchs. I will not interfere with the Emperor's and Horus's final duel. At that time, all four of you will inevitably pour your divine power into Horus to confront the Emperor and to restrain the Dark King. Your attention will be fixed on the peak conflict on Holy Terra. Axis smiled faintly. While you're all engrossed there, I'll infiltrate Nurgle's garden and abduct the life goddess. I can even ask the laughing god, Segarak, for help. He won't stand by if one of his Eldari is in danger. Good idea, Khorne admitted. This way I avoid direct confrontation with Nurgle. Honestly, that old fat man and I get along reasonably well in private. He laughed, pleased. Axis rolled his eyes at that needless flourish. Nonetheless, the plan solved the problem. During the Emperor Horus showdown, the four gods would be preoccupied. Slaanesh wouldn't have time to intervene, Nurgle couldn't guard his garden, and Khorne himself could remain detached. Then it's settled, Axis said again. After sealing the plan, Khorne's curiosity turned to the greater cosmology Axis had mentioned. Tell me more about the divine system in that other world. Axis obliged. It's a multiverse. The supreme ruler there is called the All-King. He has the power to erase an entire universe clean from existence. Beneath the All-King are beings like the Grand Priest and the dragon god Zalama, whose status approaches his. Each subordinate universe usually has a trio of supreme gods, an angel, a god of destruction, and a world king god. The angel teaches and supervises, but doesn't interfere directly. The god of destruction destroys planets to maintain balance. The world king creates planets and life. Destruction and creation balance each other. Beneath the world king are the Grand Kai and the Kais who oversee the galaxy, local planetary gods, and entities like Enma, who manages the dead, and the demon realm, a dimension of evil. Khorne listened, head slightly raised, a hint of disdain in his expression. So by that reckoning, I'm on par with the All-King? Axis's lips curved with barely concealed amusement. He crushed the fantasy without malice. You're thinking too highly of yourself. I think a god of destruction could kill you instantly. The All-King's power lay far beyond anything Khorne could fathom, and the god of destruction's ability to casually wipe a being cleanly from existence left Khorne simmering with displeasure. Axis's long, detailed explanation of the Dragon Ball universe's power system and the sharp debate that followed had forced Khorne to accept a bitter truth. The divine rules of that other world were more complete, more alien, and far more dangerous than he had imagined. The Dragon Ball cosmos sprawled far beyond 12 parallel universes. Dragon Ball Heroes, the films, even Dragon Ball GT were independent branches of reality, and the destructive authority of a god of destruction was of an order of magnitude the warp's gods could not match. Their claim to be multiversal deities was more symbolic than literal. Axis had other proof to lean on, the destruction energy itself. It was a terrifying, purifying force. It annihilated key, unraveled matter, and could be wrapped around a body as impenetrably as a second skin. Even an apprentice like Toppo could cloak himself in it and shrug off most key attacks. A Super Saiyan 4 pushed a Saiyan's power to its primitive limits, but it was not a qualitative transformation. Even Super Saiyan God or Super Saiyan Blue could not claim immunity to the horror of destruction energy. Vegeta had only scraped a victory over a half-trained Toppo by forcing himself into the brink and entering the deep blue state. Proof, if any were needed, that the god of destruction was a vastly different tier of being. Khorne did not press the point further. Without direct battle, true strength could not be settled. The Warp's four gods were anchored to the existence of their universe. As long as the real universe endured, their warp endured, and so did they. Only a theoretical threat, the so-called Dark King, had ever loomed as a possible rival. For the moment, the disagreement ended. Brother Axis, Khorne's voice through the Warp's terrible clamor, let this matter rest. Axis replied. Agreed. We will act independently when the time comes. They settled a few final details, and with the sole fragment of Khan in his possession, Axis withdrew from Khorne's domain and returned to the real universe. Because the Warp's time bled differently, the Primarchs and Kasha saw Axis as having been absent only a few seconds. None could tell that in those fleeting instants, his psyche had penetrated to the Warp's heart and struck a secret bargain with the Chaos Gods, a bargain that might shape humanity's future. Once Axis applied his methods to the soul fragment of Chaos Khan, the cleansing went surprisingly smoothly. Khorne had already cut Khan off, withdrawn blessings, stripped divine power, so the Warp's corruption peeled away from Khan like old skin. In a matter of minutes, the Khan from that parallel world was returned, physically and mentally, to human form. But the change brought a new problem. The man began to visibly disintegrate. Khan had survived for 10 millennia only by sustained feeding on Khorne's power. Space Marines were not built to live that long. Without the Warp's unnatural nourishment, his life finally unspooled. The spirit tree fruit Axis had used during the purification could only stave off the worst of the decay. It could not grant new strength or a true extension of lifespan. Axis set the vial of the remaining spirit tree juice into Khan's hands. "Drink the rest," he said. "It contains enough life energy to give you another 2,000 or 3,000 years." Khan's eyes lingered on the precious liquid. For a moment he seemed tempted, but then he shook his head with a resolve that surprised everyone. "Lord Axis, I thank you. You have saved me from the corruption of the Chaos Gods and returned me to humanity." His voice was raw with relief and grief. "But the crimes I have committed are beyond reckoning. I have butchered so many innocents. Their blood could fill worlds. Perhaps death is my only salvation. Let me go. Let me die as a human." "Die and you will only be devoured," Axis said, blunt and cold. "You think death would be mercy? Your soul will be pulled into the warp and torn apart. You know this. You have lived in the warp for 10,000 years." The grim truth of the Warhammer universe lay naked before them. The warp was hell. Death could be worse than a sentence. Imperial warriors 1,000 generations hence cried "Soul to the Golden Throne" when they fell, but no one could promise what that fate truly meant. With his massive blood debts and the taint of Khorne's patronage, Khan's soul had no hope of a peaceful destiny. He would be tortured, devoured by daemons, perhaps even by the faces of those he had slain. Silence fell. Leman stepped forward, voice hard. "Death is an evasion. You hold crucial information about the future. The Imperium needs that knowledge, and you must answer for what you did." He had even thought to suggest Khorne be sealed in stasis to be interrogated later, for the memories of the future were priceless. Khorne hesitated, tormented. At last, he extended a trembling hand and drank the spirit tree juice in one long pull. The life force flooded him. Decay halted and reversed. He drew a new, complete breath. "I have decided," Khorne said, eyes burning with a fierce, complicated light. "I will live. I will use what remains of my strength to serve humanity, and through that service I will atone." Axis nodded, satisfied. The Primarchs relaxed their guard slightly. Khorne would not be consigned immediately to cold stasis. Axis signaled his gene-seed offspring to take Khorne to an ordinary cell under supervision. "He was a true warrior," Chagatai Khan murmured, regret softening his tone. "But he betrayed the Imperium." Leman was sterner. "Betrayal is betrayal. Our future must be defended." The example of Horus's uprising hung heavy in their minds. Power concentrated in a single commander could be catastrophic. Leman vowed privately to propose reorganizations when the wars ended. Kratos' voice cut the heavy air, thinned with barely contained fury. "Now let us go greet that traitor Lorgar. My fists are getting restless." "I have nothing for him to say to me," Chagatai Khan snorted, but Leman insisted. Lorgar was a prisoner. He must understand the price of betrayal. Axis had Lorgar brought forward. The word-bearer's Primarch's eyes snapped open as the stasis melted away. He was surrounded by cold, angry faces, brothers who had once loved and revered him. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple, but when he saw Kratos, his hatred flared, swallowing fear. "You traitor!" Sanguinius's voice fell like judgment. "Look at what you have done to the Imperium." "The Emperor betrayed me first," Lorgar roared, throat raw with fury. "I worshipped him as a god. He denied me. And you and that false Emperor destroyed my work." He pointed at Kratos with a ferocity that was almost religious. "You and that impostor crushed the perfect city, my life's work." "I only followed the Emperor's orders," Kratos replied, voice taut. "Though the perfect city was destroyed, your people were spared. No one was needlessly killed. It was a warning, not a slaughter. You refused to heed counsel and delayed the Great Crusade. That obstinacy brought ruin." Lorgar sneered. "What do you, born less than a decade ago, know of anything? What right have you to judge me, you, bastard son of Axis and Leman's foster mother?" His insult cut outward like a blade. Kasha moved before anyone could stop her. In a flash, she struck Lorgar across the face. His curses choked off. He reeled, dazed. Axis stepped forward and slapped him harder, the blow cracking teeth free of his mouth. Blood and spit flecked the air. "My son is no bastard," Axis said, ice cold. "He is the child of Kasha and me. It was only the machinations of the Chaos Gods that thwarted his birth, forcing Mizyudun to carry him. Kratos is of Kasha's blood. No traitor is nobler than he." He spoke the truth that only Leman and Sanguinius and a very few others had known. Sanguinius spoke, pity in his tone. "Lorgar, you betrayed the Emperor." That was your greatest crime. Guilliman, restraining his anger, returned to the pressing matter. Where is Horus's main fleet? What is his next move? Lorgar spat, bloody foam flecking his lips. I do not know, he snarled. And if I did, I would never tell you dogs of the false emperor. His true intent had been dark. He had meant to sacrifice Axis's gene seed offspring to appease the gods and ascend to daemonhood. That plan had failed, and he bore no love for Horus. He coveted power for himself. Lorgar, this is your last chance, Guilliman warned. Tell us Horus's plan, and perhaps when we reach Terra, I can plead for clemency. I need no forgiveness from that hypocrite, Lorgar spat. He betrayed me. I did not betray him. The words were fanatical, edged with delusion. Axis cut the interrogation short. We will not gain anything more. Our priority is Terra. The Primarchs, grim and disgusted, sealed Lorgar back into his stasis field. The cell door closed and muted his curses, leaving only the echo of what had been lost and the terrible responsibilities ahead. Chapter 269. The Saiyan teaches his son the ways of the Iron Fist of Love. After the interrogation of Lorgar, Axis spent the next few days with his son, determined to deepen their bond. In true Saiyan fashion, that meant a father-son training session. In the Morning Star's training room, Axis, completely in his normal state, proceeded to pummel Kratos with his bare fists. He called it making up for the lack of paternal affection with his fists of love. Bang, bang, bang. Kratos could only try to parry. His father's movements were too fast and too powerful to read. He took blow after blow passively, each strike delivered with a force ordinary men could not withstand. Axis combined speed, strength, and defense into one nearly flawless fighting machine. He seemed to have no weaknesses at all. Come on, Dad, can't you go easier on me? Kratos asked, his face already swollen and bruised, looking at his father with a helpless expression. He had been excited to train with Axis in private. He'd even declined company from his mother to be there with his father. But this friendly session had quickly taught him why Axis was called the strongest gene seed Primarch and humanity's top warrior. Even in his base state, Axis suppressed him. Even when Kratos had once activated his golden mode, boosting himself 50-fold, he still couldn't match his father. I'm going easy, Axis said with mock helplessness. These are Dad's fists of love. I can't be comfortable sending you out if you're this weak. You have to get stronger. He wasn't even using any transformation beyond his normal power. Kratos felt the sting of the assessment. Weak? Really? In the Golden Legion, only Khorne could give him a few moves, and among the Gene Seed Primarchs, Guilliman couldn't match him, while Sanguinius mostly defended and used his wings to evade. His psychic training under Magnus, his inheritance from Axis and Kasha, and even a touch of the Emperor's might, Kratos knew he was no slouch. Father, I understand. But next time, could the fists of love be a little gentler? Being your son is a lot of pressure, Kratos said with a rueful smile. You need strict combat training. I'll make you an excellent warrior, Axis replied. I know you're holding back. If you want to use psychic power, go ahead. Kratos' psychic ability probably resembled Kasha's early levels, strong but not on Kasha's current level. He hadn't received chi enhancement or eaten any spirit fruit. Still, he'd learned aggressive psychic techniques from Magnus and wanted to test himself. Father, the psychic magic I've learned is potent. Since this is just sparring, no need to hold back. How about you transform into golden mode too? I want to see how powerful your golden state is. Axis chuckled. That transformation isn't called golden mode. It's called Super Saiyan. Golden light flared around him. His hair flashed gold, and golden chi flames roared to life as he shifted into the standard Super Saiyan state. Kratos took a breath and let his last hesitation go. He wanted to see the gap between himself and this so-called greatest of warriors. Then, Father, forgive my offense. Blue light burned in Kratos' eyes, and a surge of psychic power erupted. He prepared the Mind Scream, a high-level technique Magnus had taught him, and other psychic assaults. The training room filled with a violent storm. Blinding, destructive psychic lightning condensed into several pale, massive serpents, tearing through the air like bucket-thick pythons, roaring as they lunged at Axis from every angle. An intense cold aura crystallized the floor into thick ice. The air congealed into razor shards swirling like a blizzard. An invisible gravity well tried to pin Axis in place. Axis stood in the center, his golden chi flames flickering but unwavering, a rock in the gale. The psychic bolts, capable of melting gold and shearing steel, struck his arm and torso and fizzled like sparks, unable to move his golden hair. The ice storm smashed against an unseen chi barrier and shattered into glittering dust before it could reach him. The freezing air vaporized as it neared his heat. The crushing gravity bent the alloy deck underfoot, but Axis shrugged and twisted his neck, stepping as lightly as ever. "My foolish son," he said with a smile, "your gravity magic is useless on me. I've trained under 100 times gravity, and my homeland's gravity was over 10 times Terra's. Saiyans love training under weight. Kasha even used that magic to help me. It won't work." Kratos shifted tactics. He condensed mental energy into a formless spike aimed at Axis's mind. The mind scream meant to destroy will and even tear at the soul. Countless subtle psychic tendrils sought to burrow into Axis's subconscious and sow fear and confusion. When those invisible blades and tentacles brushed Axis, something changed. Axis's golden chi ignited, burning purer and stronger. The mind scream hit that field like ice thrown into a furnace and melted away without leaving a ripple. The little suggestion tendrils were burned off like shadows under a hot sun. Axis hadn't even bothered to mount a psychic defense. He simply stood there, a faint, almost helpless smile on his face. Chi naturally repels and purifies warp energies. The life energy that animated Axis's Super Saiyan Chi acted as anathema to the impure forces of the warp, so Kratos' psychic onslaught was countered by the aura his body emitted. "Good try, Kratos," Axis said. "You've truly learned Magnus's methods. They're aggressive, but they're useless on me. Chi, especially in the Super Saiyan state, is a manifestation of life and will. It naturally repels those impure warp forces. Your attacks can't break my Chi flame protection." Kratos' heart dropped. His strongest psychic strike, an attack Magnus had warned him against, hadn't even forced his father to defend, much less suffer. Axis had been completely immune, merely by being. "If you're done attacking, it's my turn. Let's see how well you defend against psychic power," Axis snorted. He blurred into a golden bolt and charged. Bang, bang, bang. In a few furious exchanges, Kratos was thrown to the floor like a rag doll. Axis's version of love was a brutal, efficient lesson. "Kratos, you're too weak." Chapter 270, Instruction, Super Saiyan Full Power. Super Saiyan 2 Kratos managed a bitter smile. His defensive psychic barrier had been worthless against Axis's iron fist. The force field he had just raised with psychic power shattered under his father's blow, and then a golden-imbued punch slammed into his face. "You still need to train harder, Kratos. I will personally train you," Axis said, folding his arms. Kratos sat up and wiped blood from his lip. "Father, the reason you are so powerful is the chi energy. That power is unique to you. Aside from those special cultivators, no one in this universe has it. Even though I inherited your bloodline, all I have is the golden transformation, what others call the Super Saiyan form. My strength has already peaked with that. The chance of getting stronger is slim." Axis snorted. "I'll find a way around the chi problem, but your strength will not be stuck where it is. First, the spirit tree fruit can still raise your power. Second, you haven't developed the Super Saiyan fully. Do you think this transformation stops at what you have now?" Kratos blinked. "You mean the golden transformation has higher forms?" "Exactly." Axis's expression softened into a teacher's patience. "You can become stronger than you are. The reason you could transform early is because you inherited enough S-cells from me, and, thanks to your mother, you had a calm mind, perfect for that transformation. You could have transformed when you were 5 or 6. "I could at 4, Kratos admitted. "Back then, my power multiplied 50-fold. I learned to control it gradually. At first, it caused a huge commotion, even injured the maid who looked after me. I blamed myself for a long time and was afraid to use the form. It wasn't until I saw your gene seed offspring and got encouragement from Brother Khan that I finally mastered the golden transformation." "So you've had this form for over 90 years, Axis said, frowning. "And you've never tried to push it further? Never thought to make yourself stronger?" Axis's voice carried that familiar frustration many Saiyan bloodlines had with their half-Saiyan, half-Earthling offspring. In temperament, they were not like full Saiyans. Unless pushed by crisis, they rarely sought strength proactively. Hybrids often surpassed their fathers in raw talent, but fell short in relentless training. Only a few, like the future Trunks and Gohan, showed diligence. Goten and Kid Trunks were essentially lazy. Even Gohan's true desire was to be a scholar, not a warrior. Many opponents during the Great Crusade were nothing, Kratos said. I didn't need to use the Golden Transformation. The Golden Legion handled most fights. To this day, I haven't met an enemy the Golden Transformation couldn't defeat. Axis smiled with the faint edge of pride a father felt, then turned serious again. Let me explain the Super Saiyan stages. The second stage isn't about aura, it's about channeling power into your muscles to harden them. That's the Super Saiyan 2 concept, muscle injection and enhancement. Axis demonstrated a state he hadn't shown in years, a visible hardening of his physique as his muscles tensed without dramatically increasing in bulk. Kratos watched carefully, surprised his father still retained such subtleties. The third stage increases muscle mass further, Axis continued. But that form slows you down and can't be sustained long. It's not usually recommended. He let his body swell somewhat, muscles bulging, not to full hulking degree, but comparable to a Super Saiyan's more massive form. Kratos frowned. That third form needs chi energy to support it, doesn't it? I'm afraid I can't access that. Idiot, Axis said, but not unkindly. Chi energy is essentially life energy. The muscle stimulation can be driven by any life energy source. You can use your psychic power to mobilize the life energy inside your body and stimulate your muscles. Axis had been a Super Saiyan for much longer and understood the transformation deeply. The method chi energy used to bulk muscles could, in principle, be replaced by other life energies. Kratos thought for a moment. Then can I try to fuse psychic power with the transformation? He asked. If he could use his psychic power to simulate chi's effect, he might unlock a new form. Axis considered, then nodded slowly. Good idea. My chi and warp energies repel each other. I can't blend them. You are different. You don't possess chi energy, so you might be able to use psychic power to reinforce the Super Saiyan transformation. I had thought of it before, but I couldn't execute it. You might. He studied his son for a moment, pride and concern mixing on his face. Try it privately after we finish your training. Soon we'll go to Holy Terra, and a tragic war is likely to break out. I don't want anything to happen to you in that war. I need you stronger. Kratos straightened. I understand, Father. I'll train. You don't need to act. I'll beat Horus myself. Axis waved a hand. Don't worry only about Horus. Next I will teach you the Super Saiyan 2 transformation. It's far more powerful than Super Saiyan 1. You're talking about more than 100-fold increase in power. 100 times? Kratos' breath caught. That's terrifying. Axis nodded. To reach that form, you must first perfect Super Saiyan 1. Bring it to full time, full power. The first step is to maintain Super Saiyan constantly, all day except sleep. My grandfather told me about that, Kratos said. You trained that way and had the Emperor train me the same. My longest stretch was maintaining Super Saiyan for over 3 months. I even controlled it with psychic power, so I stayed transformed while sleeping. In that case, your state should already count as Super Saiyan 1 full power, Axis said. So this will be easier. The next step is to amplify your anger. Generate the most extreme rage you can without losing your sanity. Keep your mind intact while your fury reaches its peak. Extreme anger? How do I do that? Self-hypnosis, Axis said. Use your mind to imagine the worst. Picture your mother and me both killed by Horus. Picture the Emperor cut down by Horus. Imagine you want revenge. Let that rage build. Anger is one of a Super Saiyan's great fuels. If Kratos still struggled, Axis suggested he could seek help from Kong Lao. Anger was also his divine authority. Kratos nodded and closed his eyes. He wove scenes with his psychic power, high-definition illusions in his head, his father, his mother, the Emperor, all slain by Horus. The images were brutal, intimate, repeated until they started to burn. Watching them again and again kindled a rage in Kratos that had never been lit before. Aha! He roared. A golden energy burst from him, less a chi he owned than the blazing aura of his golden transformation amplified by raw fury and psychic focus. His pupils, already like molten gold, contracted until they were pinpoints, cold and precise as a blade. The golden aura around him changed. It stopped being a steady burn and underwent a drastic, immediate metamorphosis. Boom! A A column of brilliant golden light shot up into the sky. A violent shockwave radiated outward from Kratos, ripping at the air. Within that pillar, his entire form was wrapped in blinding radiance. His normally soft golden hair stood up, hard and sharp, and electric blue lightning cracked and danced across his body, snapping like celestial thunder. Kratos had ascended. His Super Saiyan 2 transformation was complete. Chapter 271. The power of the gorilla is the source of the Saiyan's power. Axis watched with satisfaction as the golden lightning cracked around Kratos, the furious arcs and the sudden hundredfold surge in energy. It was the hallmark of Super Saiyan 2. Kratos floated in midair as violent golden lightning danced over his body. Power flooded him, a torrent that seemed unending. Power. Unimaginably strong power. It worked, Father, Kratos cried, elated. He had never expected his father's golden Super Saiyan transformation to multiply so drastically. Ordinary legionnaires might get a 5-fold boost. Captains and above could reach 6 or 7 times, and only Khorne had ever managed a 10-fold or greater increase. He'd thought his father's 50-fold golden transformation was absurdly high, the practical limit of the ability, but here was something even greater. My son, do not be arrogant or impatient. Super Saiyan 2 is not the final form. I will show you a transformation stronger than Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3. Axis roared. His aura intensified, golden chi surging upward. His eyebrows vanished, his hair lengthened to his waist, and his eyes sharpened. Crackling electrical currents coiled around him. Father, you actually have another transformation? Kratos stared at Axis turned Super Saiyan 3 in disbelief. This form is called Super Saiyan 3. Its power can exceed 400 times the base level. Its combat prowess is fearsome, but it consumes enormous stamina and cannot be sustained long. I no longer use it now. Axis relaxed out of the form. Father, can I do this too? Kratos asked. What other trump cards did his father still hide? You inherited my bloodline, so theoretically you can, but you don't have chi energy. You'd have to rely on life force and psychic power to amplify the change. Axis explained. Kratos' Super Saiyan 2 and Axis's were fundamentally different. Axis's transformation was an enhancement of chi and the body. Kratos, lacking chi, amplified his life energy and psychic power instead. In destructive capacity, psychic power was no joke. Given enough strength, it could tear apart a planet or twist a star, much like high-level chi. Kratos' psychic power had surged at least 100-fold. He was now close to, possibly greater than, Magnus. That was the amplification granted by his Super Saiyan change. I understand, Father. I'll master this Super Saiyan form, Kratos said, nodding. Next is my strongest transformation. I call it the legendary Super Saiyan. Axis inhaled deeply. Golden green light bathed him as his muscles swelled. In moments, he became a muscular colossus 3.6 meters tall, an overwhelming aura radiating from him. His eyes went white, pupils vanished, and a terrifying, savage expression claimed his face. Green light filled the training room. The morning star itself trembled. Axis's hair bristled in a golden-green explosion. This is the legendary Super Saiyan, the warrior's peak for our race. Only those of the purest, most primitive Saiyan blood can attain it. This is our most extreme and violent form, sometimes called the Devil's Saiyan. His voice was grim. Kratos' body trembled. Cold sweat ran down his forehead and back. In that instant, he didn't see his father so much as a ferocious god of destruction, a true annihilator. The aura induced in Kratos a choking fear. He would be killed, eliminated. Resistance was impossible. Those thoughts filled his mind. Do not be afraid, my son. The aura of a legendary Super Saiyan suppresses ordinary and mixed-blood Saiyan. You must overcome this fear, your fear of me. Axis's tone was firm. The legendary form's presence was unbearably oppressive. The purer the bloodline and the keener the senses, the more one felt Axis's cruelty and power. Kratos had been optimized genetically by the human emperor, but was not pure Saiyan. He could not become legendary himself. Still, his Saiyan heritage was strong enough for the aura to terrify him. Father, I was frozen. It was full-on terror. For a moment I felt you could kill me easily, Kratos admitted, shaking to his feet. You must not be afraid. I will not harm you. Remember that. This fear is your bloodline pressing on you, but you carry half your mother's, the human emperor's, blood. Have confidence. You can become immune to my pressure. Axis encouraged him. Even so, the legendary form's suppression lingered. I understand, Father. I just need to get used to it. How much stronger are you in this state? Kratos asked. This form outranked Super Saiyan 2 and 3 in sheer terror. This transformation isn't a simple multiplier like the others, Axis replied. It's a bloodline inheritance. The angrier I grow, the stronger I become, and chi pours out from me. Unless you defeat me with overwhelming force, I only get stronger as I fight. Speed, strength, endurance, everything exaggerates. I can stack Super Saiyan 2 and 3, which boosts power but stresses the body. For actual combat, I favor the regular Super Saiyan, the legendary form, or the original Super Saiyan 4. Partial manifestations of Super Saiyan power are also usable. Super Saiyan 4? There's an even stronger form above legendary. Kratos' concern grew. How many hidden cards did his father hold? Let me show you. This is the most savage, primitive Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 4. Axis activated Super Saiyan 4 on top of the legendary state. He clenched his fists. A vast, wilder force, more primal than the legendary form, erupted outward. There were no radiant flames or piercing electricity now. Instead, the energy felt like it shook space-time itself, heavy and resonant like a star's heartbeat. Axis didn't grow larger again. Instead, his legendary form underwent a startling metamorphosis. Dense, flame-red hair covered his body like a beast's pelt. A thick crimson tail lashed behind him, alive and powerful. His face took on a wilder, harsher handsomeness. Most striking were his eyes. Deep, crimson shadows around them, while his chi remained golden streaked with red. The pressure he radiated was more primitive than evil, an ancient force from the origins of life, crushing at the genetic level. Kratos staggered. Where the legendary form had instilled fear, this Super Saiyan 4 inspired a deep sense of insignificance, a near instinctive submission before a being that could annihilate life itself. The combination of savagery and pure primordial power made him shake uncontrollably. Father, can I transform into legendary or Super Saiyan 4? Kratos asked. The legendary form is not possible for you. It requires the purest, most primitive Saiyan bloodline. Super Saiyan 4, though, theoretically only needs a tail. Axis glanced at Kratos' tail. Like Axis, Kratos had been born with a tail, usually wrapped around his waist like a belt. A tail? Grandpa said the tail is the key to our bloodline, the original source of our race's power. We must keep it. Kratos remembered. In the early days of Axis' legion, gene seed offspring also had tails. For Saiyan, tails were tied to power, allowing transformation into the great ape. Nuceria had no moon, so Kratos never became a great ape as a child, not until arriving on Holy Terra and seeing its moon. He transformed then, but his grandfather Makardo and others subdued him quickly. You transformed into a great ape? How did it feel? You should have kept some sanity. Axis explained, the key to Super Saiyan 4 is harnessing the great ape's power. Once mastered, the great ape's strength becomes the foundation for that primitive form. Mixed blood Saiyan have an advantage in balancing that power. The first time I transformed, I had no sanity. Later, under Grandpa's supervision, I practiced. I could keep a sliver of awareness, but the great ape state only boosted power tenfold, far inferior to the 50-fold golden transformation. As an adult, I never used it, Kratos said. In his view, the great ape's raw boost was weaker and harder to control than the golden Super Saiyan. If you truly believe that, you are mistaken. Axis's voice carried admonishment. The tail is the source of Saiyan power because it links to the great ape. The great ape's power is the cornerstone of our strength. He tapped the crimson fur covering his chest. My current form is the ultimate, perfect expression of great ape power. Super Saiyan 4 was the Saiyan's most primitive form. Theoretically, mixed blood Saiyan couldn't reach it, but Axis had wanted to try nonetheless. Perhaps he'd find new gains. What must I do? Kratos asked. You're too early. You're only mastering Super Saiyan 2. Perfect that, then break into Super Saiyan 3, and only then attempt Super Saiyan 4. Super Saiyan 4 is different from earlier transforms. It requires the perfect blend of power, bloodline, wildness, and primitivism. You don't have chi. You must build it step by step with psychic power. Axis instructed. With the human emperor's blood combined with Saiyan heritage, Kratos' potential was still enormous. I understand, Father. Chapter 272. Devour the Chaos Planet and Strengthen the Soul Fruit. In an unknown galaxy at the edge of the Ultramar 500 worlds, Axis, accompanied by his wife Kasha and son Kratos, was cultivating spirit tree fruit. The colossal psychic tree had driven its roots into the planet's soil and begun to devour every living thing. Axis continuously poured chi into the tree, accelerating its growth and increasing the rate at which it drained the planet's life force. Across the world, countless Chaos worshippers screamed as the tree's branches impaled them, their flesh and souls leached away. The tree did not discriminate. Ordinary animals and plants were absorbed, and even space demons summoned through warp rifts were consumed. Months had passed since Axis's training session with his son. During that time, he had traveled to the 4 coordinates arranged by Prime Minister Ma and planted 4 spirit trees on planets belonging to traitor Geneseed Primarchs. These Imperial worlds had been condemned to exterminate us. Axis gave them no mercy and set the trees to work. The first 3 planets were straightforward. The 4th, however, was another matter. Located on the outer edge of the Ultramar 500 worlds and serving historically as one of Horus's recruitment worlds, first taken by the Luna Wolves and later controlled by Horus's Legion, it was densely populated and thoroughly corrupted by chaos. Nearly all mortals on the world wore the taint. Nurgle's plague cultists, Slanesh's depraved followers, Khorne's berserkers, and Tzeentch's warlocks ran rampant, using mortal bodies to tear open one warp portal after another and summon scores of space demons. Because of the warp contamination, the spirit tree on that world required special handling. Axis had to expend enormous amounts of chi before planting to insulate the seed from chaos, and then sustain the growing tree with continual chi to purify the tainted warp energies, turning foul chaos power into usable life force. He also had to prevent the demons from interfering with the tree. On that world, he even found a daemon prince mid-ascension. The prince's luck ran out. Kasha and Kratos struck while the ascension was incomplete and slew him before he could return to the warp. Axis's role was to pour in purifying chi, painstakingly scrubbing the defiled aura. The work was exhausting. Only someone of Axis's legendary Super Saiyan stamina could endure it. Even fighters from the Dragon Ball world, like Goku or Vegeta, would have drained themselves dry and still come up short. The process depleted Axis's chi and required long recovery periods, which slowed the planting of the 4 trees. But the results were rewarding. Where the tree had consumed the planet and Axis had purified the warp energies, what remained was an unusually pure form of psychic energy. Warp energy distilled and cleansed by chi. The spirit fruit that grew from the last tree was bright red with a faint bluish-white glow, an almost perfect psychic essence, free of corruption by the 4 chaos gods. After finishing the 4th planting and eradicating the last of the chaos taint, Axis and his family entered the hollow at the tree's trunk. Inside, hundreds of spirit fruits hung from the branches, 700 or 800 by estimate. Axis plucked 3 of the red, bluish-tinged fruits and handed them to Kasha and Kratos, keeping one for himself. "Try this," he said. "The quality is excellent. Our psychic power should advance." Kasha and Kratos bit into the fruit. The red flesh melted on their tongues and bloomed into a warm surge of life energy flowing through their limbs. At the same time, a pure, unaligned warp energy seeped into their souls. "Father, no matter how many times I eat these fruits, they always taste amazing," Kratos said between mouthfuls. "This one's even better than the last. Unreal." He looked around at the tree devouring a whole planet with open awe. Kasha's eyes opened, and a golden psychic light, the mark of the Emperor's power, flared within them. "This energy is so pure, Axis," she said slowly. "It's not just more energy, it's a qualitative leap. I feel my psychic essence purified and elevated. This fruit's value surpasses all others." The effect was extraordinary. Not only did her life energy increase, but her soul power rose dramatically. Where previous soul enhancements had required Axis's chi to strengthen them, this boost increased her soul strength by roughly 30%, allowing her to better wield the sacred tech power of the Emperor. Kratos felt the changes too. He flexed and sent a small pulse of chi through the air. His body had grown more resilient and explosive under the fruit's nourishment. Even more startling were the changes at the soul level. "Father, I can see further into the warp now," he said. "Not with my eyes, but with a spiritual sense. Those whispers of chaos, those foul fluctuations, They're as obvious as fireflies. He wove a trace of the newly acquired pure psychic energy into his core. The golden Super Saiyan aura he'd worn took on a faint bluish-white rim, giving it a solemn, sacred cast. With this, he could perform warp navigation like his mother. Perhaps after another transformation, he could sit the golden throne and assist teacher Magnus and his grandfather. Axis had eaten a fruit himself. The gain in raw life force was modest, similar to previous fruits, but his psychic potency had sharpened as well. He nodded appreciatively. "Our hypothesis is correct," he said. "A planet deeply corrupted by chaos contains an enormous concentration of warp energy. After the spirit tree consumes the planet, and we purify that energy with chi, removing the taint of the four chaos gods and leaving only the most primitive warp essence, the resulting fruit contains exceptionally pure and concentrated psychic power. Only those with strong will and power can withstand and integrate it. Weaker souls might be overwhelmed." A new idea sparked in Kratos' mind. "Father, if these fruits were diluted, couldn't Legion members with talent be made to awaken psychic powers? This fruit gives both life energy and psychic energy. Someone might become a psyker from it." Axis's eyes brightened. The notion was sound. Diluting the fruit's essence to safely awaken latent powers could produce psykers with purer, untarnished psychic signatures, legionaries whose minds would not be corrupted by the four chaos gods. "A good idea," Axis said. "When we return, we'll find someone to experiment on." Chapter 273. Return to Terra. Surprise the god of laughter, and bring the god of chaos to visit. "I agree. This enhancement can definitely be arranged. Pure warp energy is far superior to naturally awakened psykers," Kasha said. As a natural psyker herself, she knew the dangers of psychic power better than most. Ordinary psykers, unlike her, born of the Emperor's bloodline and blessed with holy psychic power, risked everything when they reached into the warp. Mortals feared them for good reason. A psyker could lose control, go mad, crush a skull, or become a flesh portal that spilled demons into reality. "I understand. Let's go back now. Guillemon and the others have already departed. We must return to Holy Terra as quickly as possible," Axis said. "Yes, Father. Let's hurry back to Holy Terra and finish that traitor, Horus," Kratos replied. With the spirit tree fruit planted, it was time to return to Terra. Axis gathered the special fruits from the tree hollow, boarded a transport shuttle, and returned to the Morning Star. Kratos boarded his own flagship, the Golden King, a celestial-class star destroyer constructed by the Morning Star. Slightly smaller than its parent vessel, and lacking the Morning Star's transformational capabilities, the Golden King was nevertheless a formidable circular-hulled warship, the kind of rounded design most suited to sustained flight through space. Once aboard, Kasha took the ship to the center and engaged warp navigation. Father and son tore through the barrier between real space and the warp and began their transit. Axis retreated to his cabin, sat cross-legged, and opened his soul to commune with Khorne. The final, decisive battle was drawing near. A moment later, Khorne's presence linked with Axis's mind. "You finally contacted me, Brother Axis. I watched the entire planting of that mental tree. It was magnificent, and it truly held psychic power. I'm even more eager for our god fruit now," Khorne said, excitement coursing through his thought. When Axis had planted the tree in the material realm earlier, Khorne could not perceive it. The last planting, however, had been different. It had absorbed hordes of daemons, and the world where it was sown had been fatally corrupted into a daemon world. A daemon prince of Slanesh had been conducting an ascension ritual. Axis slaughtered that purple pervert, and Khorne had relished it. When the spirit tree fruit finally matured, it bore warp energy of a purity neither had expected. It could grow in the warp, or more precisely, it could draw warp power and refine it. It was spectacular. "The fruit's power is immense," Khorne rumbled. "But the warp energy of the four won't do. The warp power they carry is tainted with extreme malice and negativity. It needs purification." Axis thought of the four, raw, concentrated emotions, and compared them to fetid waste poisoning, an ocean. The fruit had granted him a neutral, unaligned warp power, neither law nor evil, but the raw potential of chaos itself. "Ha ha! Finally you see it. Imagine if you'd planted that tree within my domain," Khorne said. The implication was terrifying, complete corruption under his blood god's influence. He bristled, however, at Axis's crude metaphor. We are not merely filth. Those extremes grew from the lives in the real universe. If not for the countless evil thoughts and passions of mortals, those extremes would not exist. It is more accurate to say the real world's lives polluted the warp, not that the four of them alone did. Enough philosophizing. How is our plan arranged? What is Horus doing? Axis asked. The Emperor would be bound to the Golden Throne. Axis knew he could not change that, but he wanted to minimize the Imperium's losses and, if possible, save the Primarchs. Brother Axis, I've arranged everything. Word of you planting the mental tree and leaving Holy Terra spread. Horus has led his Chaos Fleet and legions of daemons to Holy Terra, Khorne said. He had coordinated with Axis, inside and out, to draw the Green Giant and ensnare the Dark King on the Golden Throne. Excellent. I must arrive at the battlefield at the right moment. No mistakes, Axis said. Timing would be everything. You cannot multitask, brother. When the Emperor and Horus begin their duel, you must enter the warp. That is your only window. Leave Guilliman's matter to others, Khorne advised. I've already considered that. My son Kratos will be present. Please watch him. If anything happens to my son, I will not forgive it, Axis replied. Don't worry, I'll be your inside man this time. Khorne's voice was confident. Axis knew Kratos was a fearsome fighter and could amplify his combat power 100-fold. To stop him, Horus would have to commit everything and call on the others for aid. Axis sighed, half amused and half exasperated. Sometimes I suspect you're Tzeentch in disguise. The corny Axis had met early, had been a warrior through and through, proud and straightforward, but the deeper Axis probed, the more he realized Khorne was cunning, an ancient, astute god with his own tricks and vices. Ha ha ha! I am a proud warrior, but I am also a chaos god. We are not saints. Cunning and deceit are part of our nature. If I were not crafty, how would I have survived? Tzeentch may be more practiced, but I have my ways, Khorne replied with a chuckle. Plan carefully, Axis said, outlining the steps. At the right moment, I will slip into the warp and secretly swap things out. No problem. Count on me. By the way, what did the Eldari laughing god say? Did you get his agreement? Khorne asked. Yes, I need to speak with him in detail. You must be present to lend credibility, otherwise he won't go along with such a risky plan. You know how skittish he is, Axis said. The laughing god, along with Tzeentch and the Emperor, was considered one of the galaxy's great masterminds. Compared to them, the laughing god was the most elusive and timid. He hid in the webway, rarely venturing out, and never daring to face Slaanesh alone. If Axis had approached him alone with this plan, the Harlequin deity would have dismissed it as madness. Khorne, as an intermediary, would lend weight to the proposal. No problem. I'll conceal myself. If he senses my aura, the little fool will be terrified, Khorne agreed, hiding his presence within Axis. You hide well. I'll enter the webway and give our Harlequin a proper surprise. Axis smiled. Darling, I've brought a chaos god to visit. Open the door. After ending his conversation with Khorne, Axis contacted Cassandra. Soon she transported him on a small craft out of the warp lane and into the nearest webway gate. Guided by Eldari Harlequins, they threaded the labyrinthine webway and made for the Black Library. Escorted by members of the Harlequin troops, Axis, bearing the faint, concealed trace of Khorne, arrived at the Black Library. The laughing god himself received him and led him into his palace. Dear Axis, your power has grown remarkably. Have you come seeking aid? The laughing god asked. I've come mainly to introduce a friend, Axis smiled, then released Khorne's spirit that had been hidden on him. Hello. Oh, you, ah! At the sight of Khorne, one Harlequin cried out in terrified, disbelieving laughter. Chapter 274, The Terrified Laughing God, The Surprised Laughing God, The Joining Laughing God. They really had come, the Chaos Gods. It was terrifying. Why would they show up here? When Khorne's iconic projection appeared without warning beside Mr. Axis, a crimson apparition bearing a berserker's sneer, the laughing god Qiaogauqi Segurak emitted a high, panicked shriek entirely at odds with his divine persona. The clown mask warped into an expression of genuine terror. The once bright theatrical costume seemed soaked with fear, its colors dulled. He recoiled like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, knocking a floating crystal chessboard askew until the pieces clattered to the floor. Blue, blood god? Khorne, Axis. You brought him here? Qiaogauqi's voice was thin and sharp, full of incredulous panic and anger. For a moment, he wondered if the mortal he favored, the same mortal who had once stood a chance against the 4 Chaos Gods, had been corrupted. Mr. Axis had a berserker streak. Qiao Gaoqi had watched his fighting style for years. It seemed plausible that Khorne had taken him. What a tragedy that the strongest mortal the Laughing God had ever favored might have succumbed to these monsters. Qiao Gaoqi's slender fingers trembled as he pointed at Mr. Moore, Axis, and then darted fearfully toward the red phantom that exuded pure war and slaughter. The light in the entire palace dimmed and flickered. Eldar murals on the walls, once frozen in joyful scenes, now seemed to freeze with expressions of fear. "Relax, Harlequin." Khorne, massive and wreathed in eternal flame, crossed his arms and spoke with a voice like thunder from a forge, edged with mockery. "I'm not here to tear down your wretched theater, at least not today." His burning gaze swept the palace, full of psychic mysteries, with open contempt. This Harlequin was getting more cowardly by the hour, Khorne seemed to say with every glance. Had Mr. Axis misjudged him? Could someone like this really be useful? "Mr. Qiao Gaoqi, please calm down. Nothing is as you think." Mr. Axis's voice was calm, steady as water, a sharp contrast to the tension in the room. The Laughing God had been a bit embarrassing. On their first meeting, he'd shown some of his divine bearing, and Axis had been impressed. Now, faced with Khorne himself, his terrified, near-hysterical behavior left Axis almost speechless. Axis had stared down true warp concepts before. He hadn't flinched at Slaanesh's consciousness when he'd been dragged into the warp. He had fought when he disagreed. He had fought Kong Lao when that arrived. If he could stand alongside Khorne as an ally, it had been earned by strength. "Khorne is, well, my partner. We have a plan, one that's important for you, for me, and even for him," Mr. Axis said. "Partner? With Khorne?" Qiao Gaoqi's voice rose again. He darted behind a huge rune-inscribed pillar, only his pointed hat peeking out. "Axis, are you mad? Do you know who he is? He is chaos, destruction, eternal war. Cooperate with him, he'll tear you apart and drown this place in blood. You don't understand how terrifying they are." The Laughing God bristled. "The Chaos Gods only corrupt. No one bargains with them. Cooperate with chaos? What a foolish idea." "We didn't bargain with the Emperor," Khorne interrupted, his tone icy. "We honored our ends. The one who deceived was the Emperor. We didn't break our promises. We simply took back what was ours." Among the 4, only Tzeentch delighted in scheming. The other 3, once bound by contract, would honor it, provided you could withstand their gifts. As for the deal with the Emperor, Khorne insisted he had not cheated. The Emperor had fled with what was promised. "Calm down," Axis cut in sharply, stepping forward and placing himself between Khorne's phantom and the trembling Harlequin. "Don't sully things. Listen to the plan first. I told you, this Axis fellow is too timid. Can he really come along? He has less backbone than Kayla Mensha Kain." Khorne's voice deepened with irritation. The red phantom ballooned slightly. The palace warmed. The scent of rust and sulfur filled the air. An invisible psychic pressure folded over the Laughing God. Even a trace of mental power from a Chaos God was not something every Eldar god could bear. Axis could feel, starkly, the chasm between Khorne and the Eldar pantheon. It was like the difference between a god of destruction and an earthbound deity. Perhaps icons like Asurian or Kain could stand, but many could not. No, I mean, I'll listen. I'll listen to anything," Qiao Gaoqi stammered, curling into himself. "All right, Brother Khorne, that's enough." Axis cut off Khorne's intimidation at the right moment. "We don't have much time." He stepped between the 2 gods and addressed Qiao Gaoqi plainly. "Listen, our goal is to rescue the life goddess Aisha." "Rescue? Aisha? You 2 want to rescue Aisha?" The Laughing God's disbelief was thick. In the warp, Aisha attracted the attention of Nurgle and Slaanesh, but Khorne? If Khorne cared, he would be after Kain. Or was Axis the reason? The idea that a mortal could make the Chaos Gods humble themselves and call one brother was almost beyond belief. "That's right," Axis said. "We need to pull her out of Nurgle's garden. For that, we need your help." "I don't have the power to bait Nurgle," Qiao Gaoqi protested. "You won't be the main force. You'll be our diversion. We need you to convince Aisha that she can trust us," Axis explained. Qiao Gaoqi's role was not a frontal assault, but to be the face, someone Aisha might believe had leverage over her fate. So after you rescue Aisha, what then? Khorne, are you going to lock her up in your realm? The laughing god imagined the worst. Aisha moved from Slaanesh's clutches to Nurgle's grip, and now to Khorne's war-crazed throne, traded prison to prison. The life goddess, gentle and life-giving, was hardly a warrior. To Chao Gauchi, it looked like swapping one cell for another. Don't worry, I have no interest in imprisoning her, Khorne said brusquely. We need her for something, but I won't chain her. She can leave when she wishes. Axis kept the real purpose close guarded. What they intended to enlist Aisha to do involved the fruits of gods themselves, and such things could not be spoken lightly. What he did say, plainly and carefully, was this: we won't lock Aisha up. We'll provide an Eldar vessel for her so she can manifest in the real universe. That, Axis knew, would cut to the heart of Chao Gauchi's loyalties. For ordinary Eldar, the most beloved of all was not Asurian the Phoenix King, but Aisha, mother of the Eldar. When Kain had once moved to annihilate the Eldar race, Aisha had stood and protected her children. If Aisha could return to the real universe, it would be a miracle that would tear down even the most cautious patience. No Eldar body can truly contain a god, Chao Gauchi objected. At best, a residue of a will might possess one. She'd have to remain in Khorne's realm. The life goddess's soul is strong, stronger than ours. An ordinary host won't hold her, he continued, picturing the grim trade-off. Slaanesh, Nurgle, and Khorne were terrible prisons in different ways. Perhaps Nurgle's garden was the better of two bad choices. My plan is feasible, Axis said. Have you forgotten my spirit tree fruit? Choose a suitable body, and have an Eldar woman consume the fruit continually until her body is strengthened enough to hold Aisha's soul. That caught Chao Gauchi's attention. He knew Axis's spirit tree fruit. Its reputation had spread. Axis had fruits cultivated on 8 planets. The last world had already absorbed a considerable amount of chaos power. If a god fruit could be cultivated, a share for Aisha was inevitable. She was the very spirit of life, after all. If that's true, it could work, Chao Gauchi said, eyes lighting up. What do you want Aisha to do, and what do I get out of this? Axis kept the specifics confidential for now. I'll tell you once the plan is in motion. But the thing we'll ask of Aisha is exactly the sort of thing she excels at. As for you, your greatest reward will be the return of the Eldar Mother, and I'll give you some spirit tree fruit. Axis knew the laughing god's calculations. If Aisha could manifest in a body, then Chao Gauchi, if he was weaker than her, could also cultivate a body to walk the real universe. Axis could afford the small cost. He had at least 8,000 spirit tree fruit. Giving away 10 was nothing. Heh, then it's a deal. The laughing god laughed, a warped, nervous sound. You two are mad, but I'll be mad with you. After all, I'm a lunatic too. Chao Gauchi's mind spun with worst-case daydreams. Had Axis or Khorne planned to use Aisha to bear divine offspring? That would be preposterous, but the Harlequin let his imagination run wild. He had misread the true task entirely. Mr. Axis, Lord Khorne, your proposal is perfect, rescuing Aisha, freeing her from Nurgle's hospitality, giving her the chance to walk among her children in our universe. The temptation is enough to make even cautious me take a risk, but I must know the danger. How do you plan to break through Nurgle's defenses? Nurgle's garden is the core of his realm, filled with his most potent plague legions and deadliest guardians. A direct assault would be suicide. We won't launch a direct assault, Axis replied. During the siege of Holy Terra, the Chaos Four Gods will be fully committed to aiding Horus against the human emperor. Nurgle's garden will be emptied. Then Khorne will cover us, and you and I will infiltrate Nurgle's garden to rescue Aisha. Your single task, make Aisha believe us and leave with us. Silence fell, heavy and hopeful. The plan was dangerous, but it was a window, one that opened only for a brief, fateful moment. Chapter 275, A Deadly Joke for Nurgle. The laughing god's mouth hung open, astonishment plastered across his painted face as he stared at Axis and the crimson projection of Khorne. The plan, if it was what he thought, was audacious, even brilliant. If it worked, Nurgle would be the one to suffer most. Slaanesh might at worst miss out on a few playthings. When the time comes, you'll help Khorne and me persuade Aisha to help with a very special matter, Axis said. This concerns whether we can overcome the remaining 3 Chaos Gods in the future, even whether we can defeat the Dark King. You'll help us, right, Laughing God? Convince Aisha to agree to Axis's and my request. Trust me, if this works, we'll all gain greatly, Khorne added. The laughing god stared, his voice pitching high with disbelief. Wait a minute. I understand. I finally understand why you want to save Aisha and why you keep talking about her greatest skill. Axis, Khorne, you two lunatics, you wouldn't be thinking of having the life goddess bear divine offspring for you, would you? Axis, you want to be a father? Or you, Khorne, you warmonger, you want to be a dad? Oh my god, no wonder you're preparing a real physical body for her out in the materium. Axis and Khorne had emphasized the stakes, and the laughing god had drawn the obvious conclusion. If the life goddess gained a suitable physical vessel, and given the sheer potency of her soul and body among the Eldari goddesses, any divine offspring conceived with either of them, or both, would be an enormously powerful new god. The palace fell into an eerie silence. Axis's face froze, the corner of his mouth twitched. Khorne's warborn projection wavered, as if strangled by the absurdity of the notion. For a split second, a stunned look crossed the blood god's crimson eyes before it snapped into furious rage. No problem, Khorne said loudly through the warp, forcing control. I will do my best to help persuade Aisha. This is for our ultimate victory. I think Aisha would likely accept one of you, or both together. But let me be clear. Whether together or apart, any divine offspring sired with the mysterious goddess Aisha will be half-owned by us Eldari, and also belong to one of our Eldari gods. The three parties must strengthen cooperation. The laughing god's grin widened into a mischievous leer. I've seen through your intentions, he said, raising a painted eyebrow at Axis and Khorne. This would benefit the Eldari as well, he thought. He would use every trick to persuade Aisha. Khorne exploded. What the hell are you spouting? His roar cracked like 1,000 thunderbolts in the enclosed room. His blood-red projection swelled to monstrous size. The will to slaughter nearly coalesced into a blade. You filthy webway rat, your head stuffed with rotten thoughts. I'll tear out your tongue and shove it. Axis answered physically. He punched the laughing god straight in the nose, skewing the painted snout. An uppercut to the midriff doubled the harlequin over like a broken puppet. A knee to the head followed. Bang, bang, slap, slap. Oh, ow, stop hitting me, please. I'll help you. I understand, Axis. There might have been a misunderstanding. The clown gagged between laughing and whining. He finally realized he'd said the wrong thing. What do you understand, you idiot? Axis snapped. You're fantasizing. What are you thinking? I'm a married man. I wouldn't marry a woman 60 million years older than me. I certainly won't share my woman with anyone. I've tolerated you long enough. Take this. Axis drove his fist in again. Well done, Axis. Beat that clown hard. Give him more. Don't hold back. Khorne urged, eyes glittering. As a psychic projection, he lacked a body this time, or he would have joined the thrashing. Did the 4 Chaos Gods really need offspring? Theoretically, many demon princes and greater demons already filled that role. Still, there was no place for soft sentiment in Khorne's wars. After the savage beating, the laughing god lay bruised and swollen on the floor, but still smiling. Gentlemen, he wheezed, drawing himself up on one elbow, since we are partners, I should at least know a little of the inside story. You ought to tell me exactly what you want Aisha to do. Axis's lips thinned. Feels like you were laying a trap for me, right? Do you really need to know? It's a 3-way operation, the laughing god said, wincing as he shifted. I must know the details. It's the least respect you owe your ally. Axis and Khorne shared a look and nodded. After rescuing the life goddess, they would need the Harlequin's help to persuade her. Telling him now wasn't impossible, and the laughing god's probing had been deliberate. He had a right to know, after all. Straightforward, then, Khorne said. My brother Axis and I need Aisha to plant trees. A very special, miraculous tree. Oh, if you put it that way, I see, the laughing god said eagerly. Axis, you mean the spirit tree fruit? Talk to us like you have sense in you, Axis replied, grudgingly amused. As you guessed, we want to plant a mind tree. I brought it from another world. It's also called the Tree of the Gods. Its fruits are fit only for gods. When such a tree grows on ordinary worlds, its produce are called spirit tree fruits. When it grows in the divine realms, the fruits are gods themselves. So that's it, the laughing god said, eyes sparkling behind his mask. You need the life goddess to give it life. and the field you've chosen is Khorne's divine realm. Axis nodded. The idea was as risky as it was clever. With Axis's psychic energy, Khorne's divine might, the life goddess's power, and a massive infusion of warp energy, the fruits yielded could be catastrophic, blessings fit for gods, perhaps gods themselves. Any more questions? Axis asked, a warning in his tone. None, absolutely none, the laughing god said in an exaggerated bow, sending a jolt of pain through his newly swollen features, but his grin never faltered. I'll come with you this time. My bones are rusty from staying in the webway. It'll be easier to act that way. And he paused. Beneath the painted smile, a crazed light shone. I can't wait to prepare a hellish joke for Nurgle, the utterly surprised, gift-loving Father Nurgle. Since Slaaneş's birth, the Harlequin had hidden in the webway, afraid to expose himself. Though Slaaneş had only existed for a millennium by some reckonings, the warp lacked linear time. Chaos gods could span epochs. The laughing god had hidden long enough. Now he revealed the focus and cunning of one of the galaxy's great planners and began ironing out every fatal detail of the rescue. A mad, bold prison break plan targeting Nurgle, the Lord of Decay, was finalized in the depths of the Black Library by a mortal, the Blood God, and a clown. Very good, Khorne's projection rumbled, satisfied. Brother Axis, watch our clown ally. Don't let him falter at the crucial moment or turn this into a jest. Nurgle's garden is no stage for tricks. Don't worry, Lord Blood God, I'm a professional. The laughing god patted his chest theatrically, ignoring the ache. You have half an hour to prepare, then we depart, Axis said, and the two left the Harlequin's chamber. Mortal and chaos gods, planting trees and slaying gods. What a mad age, what mad allies, the laughing god muttered after them, a little gleeful. But I like it. Ha ha! Mr. Nurgle, your surprise package is on its way. He snapped back into his jittery, excited smile and trotted after them. It would be a deadly joke. Under the Harlequin's control, the webway entrance reopened. Axis, accompanied by his unpredictable new ally, the laughing god Chao Gauchi and his troop, headed back to the Morning Star. The operation, from planning to departure, had taken only a few days. All the while, the final battle on Holy Terra was already beginning to erupt in silence and shadow. Chapter 276, Defective Goods, Millions of Chaos Space Marines. Before leaving, Axis had told Kasha and the others that he would request permission from the Eldar clown troop to use the webway to lead a large legion forward. So Kasha and Kratos, along with 2 fleets, waited in a star system for Axis to return. Axis had not told them about his secret connection to the laughing god. Publicly, he always said he'd partnered with the clown troop, not with the god hiding in the shadows. Father, have you arranged it with the Eldar? Will they let us use the webway? Kratos asked, anxious. He had just sent a psychic signal to Holy Terra, and the news was grim. Horus's Chaos Army had already laid siege to Terra. St. Giles and Chagatai Khan's fleets were bogged down by the Chaos assault. Only St. Giles, with his elite legion's gene seed, had broken through the encirclement and was making for Terra. The others were covering the withdrawal. The defense of Terra had already begun. If they traveled through the warp, they might not even arrive as quickly as Guilliman and the others. There was a real risk they would miss the battle. They needed another route. The situation is urgent, but don't worry, Axis said. I've spoken with the clown troop. They've agreed to let us lead our army into the webway and head for Terra. That's excellent, Father. In that case, we'll only need a few days to reach Terra, Kratos replied. Axis's ties with the clown troop were strong enough that they'd allowed such an enormous force, hundreds of thousands, passage through the webway. Axis, the clown troop must have gotten a valuable reward for this, right? There's no way our nearly 300,000-strong legion would be allowed through for free, Kasha observed. There was a price, Axis admitted. I offered them a portion of the spirit tree fruit we planted. That was the agreement he'd made with the laughing god. The clown troop would receive some of the spirit tree fruit. Are you giving them the defective spirit tree fruit? Kasha asked. While cultivating spirit tree fruit, Axis had experimented with planting spirit tree seeds he'd harvested from the Warhammer universe on a planet. The trees took life energy only from a local area, roughly 200 kilometers across, so hundreds could be planted on a single world without killing it outright. Each small psychic tree could grow to several hundred meters and bear hundreds of fruits, but only the planting site would become desert. With Imperial technology, such damage could be restored. Axis had harvested tens of thousands of these inferior fruits. They didn't contain the planet-devouring potency of a true spirit tree fruit. Their power was roughly equivalent to concentrated fruit juice, but they were abundant. I'll give them about 3,000 of the defective fruits and 100 genuine spirit tree fruits, Axis said. Considering the size of the Legion, we still have to pay a price. You must be careful with these Xenos, Axis, Kasha warned. The Clown Troop and the Craftworld Eldar are one thing. They don't have the same direct enmity toward humanity. But the Dark Eldar are another matter. Kasha worried the Clown Troop might share the fruits with other Eldar, Craftworld Eldar, Exodites, and potentially Dark Eldar. The first two posed little direct threat, but the Dark Eldar were a scourge, sadistic raiders who abducted humans for torture and slavery. Father, Mother is right. The Dark Eldar are vile. You haven't seen how they butcher humans, Kratos added. Don't worry, Axis said. I've made it clear to the Clown Troop. If they dare provide these fruits, or any future spirit tree fruit, to the Dark Eldar, they shouldn't expect me to be polite. He meant it. He'd already agreed with the Laughing God that the Dark Eldar, traitors who had embraced Slaanesh, would be eliminated. All right, let's depart quickly. Terra can't wait, Kratos urged. Axis nodded and ordered the army to mobilize. Led by the Eldar Clown Troop's vessel, the Morning Star, and the Golden King, two Celestial-class ships, the force entered the webway and set course for Terra. As they ran, Khorne maintained real-time contact with Axis, reporting the situation at Terra. Horus's forces had reached the solar system and were hammering the Imperial Fists and 3 other crippled legions positioned on the defensive belts of Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune. Horus had brought enormous numbers of troops and mortal auxiliaries, aided by defecting members of the Mechanicus who had become the Dark Mechanicum. Many Imperial worlds had openly sided with Warmaster Horus. The Imperium was fracturing. The people had long suffered, and reputations could be bought or broken. Planetary betrayal was hardly unthinkable. Axis, I have terrible news, Khorne said. Horus has assembled an enormous force and multiplied the number of Chaos Space Marines under his command. He now fields 3 million fully modified Chaos Space Marines. You mean 3 million Space Marines? Axis exclaimed. How is that possible? Khorne explained. It involved Nurgle and the Plague Legion, who had developed a horrific surgical process to prematurely produce Space Marines. They called it demon womb cultivation. Pregnant mortal women were abducted and implanted with gene seed. Their fetuses were mutated and rapidly brought to term as Chaos Space Marines. The cultists applied a layer of human skin, and the Dark Mechanicum furnished them with gear. The warp's timelessness allowed Horus to churn out vast numbers of these abominations quickly. They also made a massive number of hell beasts, Khorne added. It's similar in concept to your dreadnoughts, but perverted, failed embryonic forms were stuffed into mechanical bodies and fused. The number of these deformed hell beasts also numbers in the millions. The only small mercy is that these hastily produced Chaos Space Marines and cobbled-together hell beasts aren't as effective in combat as genuine Marine battle brothers or true dreadnoughts. Axis scowled. If Horus truly had these forces, the pressure on the Imperium was terrifying. Can you help get Guilliman's or Kagatai Khan's fleets to Terra faster? Axis asked. The Imperium now had only 3 incomplete legions and a semi-complete Imperial Fists. Even with St. Giles, that was 2 legions at best. Facing millions of Chaos foes and Hell Beasts would be brutal. Khorne's voice was reluctant. I can't be too obvious, Axis. If I interfere too much, it will alert the enemy and ruin our long-term plan. If Terra's defenses collapse and the defenders are crushed, our plan is over. Axis snapped. You know how important the fruit of the spirit tree is. There was a pause, then Khorne relented with limits. All right, I'll do what I can. At most, I can let Chaghatai's fleet break the blockade and reach Terra. As for Guilliman, Horus and his commanders are watching too closely, and Guilliman's force is formidable, second only to your Golden Legion. It will be too difficult. Khorne finally agreed to Axis's request. Behind the backs of the other Chaos Gods, he accelerated Chagatai Khan's White Scars Legion, letting them reach Holy Terra a few days earlier than planned. "Are the other Gene Seed Primarchs all right?" Axis asked. It didn't matter how many Space Marines died, even if a whole legion was destroyed, so long as the Primarch survived, the Gene Seed could rebuild an army in decades. This was a war of attrition. "They're all fine. The final decisive battle is only a few days away. Both sides are gathering strength. One thing, Angron must be deployed in this fight. And bad news, Slaanesh has already blessed Fulgrim. He's been made a demon prince. The Emperor's children have become noise marines," Khorne said. The four Chaos Gods wanted the Emperor trapped on the Golden Throne in a state of living death. Khorne had long ago corrupted Angron and would unleash him now. Slaanesh had remade Fulgrim, whose physical body Axis had destroyed long ago, into a warp-touched form. "I understand. All the Gene Seed Primarchs have taken the Spirit Tree fruit I gave them. Angron's manageable. Send Fulgrim to Sanguinius," Axis said. He had confidence. Every Primarch, even the traitors, had been strengthened by his Spirit Tree fruit, except Angron, whose place Axis had taken entirely. Angron's promotion to Daemon Prince or Great Daemon would not significantly increase his power compared with the Primarchs on Terra. Rogel Dorn, Sanguinius, Ferris Manus, Vulcan, Korax, and the soon-arriving Chagatai Khan should be able to handle him. The only one to be truly feared was Fulgrim after Ascension. Only Sanguinius, with his unique cultivator-bred offspring bolstered by Chi, might match him. "Ha ha! You are confident indeed. I'll help covertly. I must go. If the others discover us, it will ruin everything." "Once we reach Terra, we begin the siege," Khorne said, then severed the connection and threw himself into preparations for the assault. After Khorne left, Axis exhaled. The situation on Holy Terra had become a matter of life and death. Yet neither the Emperor nor Magnus had urged Axis to hurry. They did not press him for his arrival time. Axis understood. The Emperor had arranged it. If the Emperor himself joined the field, the Dark King would wipe out humanity. To prevent that, he would be forced to move against Axis. That protective decision left Axis with a helpless sense of isolation. He pushed his webway craft to its limit. In a matter of days, he would be at Terra, and he set himself to readying for action. In the meantime, the Chaos Gods threw everything behind Horus. They had stoked his fury into the Great Heresy, second only to the Iron Men Rebellion in human history. "Attack my warriors, for our future, for our new empire. Eradicate the false Emperor's tyranny." Horus bellowed in black power armor and issued the final general assault. He meant to seize Holy Terra in one stroke, kill the Emperor, and in doing so claim the Dark King's power. The gods fed him the lie that he was the Dark King's host. "For the War Master, for the Lord of Mankind, charge!" The seemingly endless tide of Chaos Space Marines surged forward. The entire system descended into war. Chaos and Loyalist fleets clashed in a deathly graveyard strewn with wreckage across millions of kilometers of space. Laser and macro cannon fire tore void and hull alike. Torpedoes cut bright streaks into vacuum. Giant orbital platforms were shattered remnants. The Imperial Fists, Rogel Dorn's sons, made a defiant stand from the last intact stations in the asteroid belt, and Chaos boarding craft hammered every fortress. "Down with the false Emperor! Overthrow the tyrant!" roared the Chaos ranks as they broke on strong points. "For the Imperium! For the Emperor!" An Imperial Fists veteran screamed, charging with a chainsword as the 11th Legion's siege arrays punched holes through traitor armor. Plague Marines of the Death Guard endured bolter storms to spit corrosive pus and plague grenades into corridors. Loyalists in ragged power armor met the enemy in bloodied close combat. Chainswords sang, power axes cleaved, and bolters cracked in short, deafening bursts. The air reeked of ozone, blood, and Nurgle's rot. An Imperial Fists veteran crushed a Plague Marine's skull with his broken power fist, only to be impaled by a power longsword seconds later. He detonated a melt-a-bomb at his belt, taking several enemies with him. Dorn's fortifications were brutal to crack. His defense works demanded a slaughter to breach. Above the Uranus-Neptune line, the remaining Loyalist fleets were isolated and fighting on their own. Dark Mechanicum vessels fired energy lances and virus ordnance, seeding warp contamination and death. On the ground in the system, roughly 300,000 Space Marines held the line against over 3 million Chaos Space Marines, a 10-to-1 numerical advantage, and a host of twisted hell beasts. Warp-spawned portals molded from living flesh vomited demons into the real universe. Bloodletters, nurglings, and chattering horrors swarmed like locusts. Boarding actions turned ship decks into slaughterhouses. Mortal crew were quickly overwhelmed by claws and flame. Then a spatial rip opened. Chagatai Khan and the White Scars burst into the system. Warriors, for the Imperium, for humanity, destroy these traitors. Chagatai Khan roared, chainsword raised. For the Khan! The White Scars answered and charged. Many of them had once considered surrender to Horus. Seeing the true, abominable face of chaos left them hollow with regret. The White Scars' bike gangs and motorized units tore through debris fields, striking fast and fading like specters. Chagatai's lightning assaults and precise strikes harried enemy lines and interrupted flank maneuvers. Reinforcements have arrived, word spread. The Salamanders, Raven Guard, and others boosted defender morale. But Horus snarled at the gods. You promised there would be no aid. Why did he appear? This is not our problem, Tzeentch replied. We ensured Guilliman cannot arrive. Terra is trapped in the same day by the warp barrier. It's only 1 legion, Khorne said. 100,000 at most. You command 3 million. A few thousand deaths among fodder mean nothing. Horus's face was hard. It must be true. 2 people I care about cannot reach Terra. We've guaranteed Guilliman won't come. Axis, however, is not using a warp route. He's using the webway. He will reach the battlefield in 3 or 4 days. You must end this before he arrives, Slaanesh said. The Chaos Gods could not block the webway. They had learned of Axis's ties to that Eldari clown and were helpless to stop it. I will end this battle in 3 days. I will personally finish the Emperor, Horus vowed. He would win at any cost. The war crashed on. Khorne's clandestine aid was but a drop in the ocean. Chagatai Khan's 100,000 arrived like a silver storm and bought the defenders precious hours and a surge of hope. But Horus's tide of warriors, spawned by daemon wombs and produced in Hellbeast factories, seemed endless. Entire formations of Hellbeast drop pods smashed onto asteroid surfaces. The mechanical monstrosities tore through gorillas with flamethrowers and corrosive cannons. Chagatai's scimitar was slick with daemon oil and mutated blood. Ferrus Manus's hammer cleaved daemons and traitors into pieces. Vulcan, Dragon Lord of the Salamanders, and Korax of the Raven Guard fought until each breath was borrowed. Still the enemy numbers rolled on. Exhausted, those Geneseed Primarchs fell back to the Imperial Palace to link up with Rogel Dorn. Only Sanguinius remained aloft on the field, an angelic storm cutting through daemons and smashing corrupt landing craft. The battle had spread to Terra. Orbital bombardment rained debris like meteors, cities ignited in infernal storms. Mortal militia and planetary defense troops, brave but fragile, were torn to shreds by hellbeasts that turned trenches into scorched ground with rotating turrets in flame. Fanatical rebels swarmed with suicidal fervor. The whole system had become a massive grinder. Holy Terra itself was the last island of loyalty being pounded by wave after wave of chaos. At the outer perimeter of the Imperial Palace, at the foot of the Himalayas, Rogel Dorn stood and commanded. He was the last shield between the enemies of humanity and the throne itself. Rogel Dorn stood like a bastion at the command node, his voice carried across every channel of the fortress cluster. It was a voice meant to steady the wavering, to steel the hearts of those still standing. Warriors of the Imperium, my Geneseed offspring, this is our darkest hour. Fight bravely and purge these traitors. The Imperium stands at a moment of life and death. We fight for humanity. We fight for the Emperor. Hold fast, warriors. Reinforcements will come. The 12th Geneseed Primarch Axis, the 13th Geneseed Primarch Robert Guilliman, and Warmaster Kratos of the Imperium's left flank lead forces on their way. The Ultramarines, the Golden Legion, and the Son of Axis, these 3 legions will reach the field. We will turn the tide and win this day. Dorn sent that message across all full-spectrum channels, trying to bolster morale and keep the loyal legions fighting. The Space Marines did not shout. They simply raised their weapons and opened fire. The mortal ranks, men and women without Geneseed, managed more noise, cries, prayers, a ragged hope that reinforcements would arrive and that they need only hold a little longer. But in the command center of the Imperial Palace, Dorn's ashen face betrayed the truth behind his words. The enemy assault was unrelenting. Chaos Space Marines, Hellbrutes, and an endless tide of daemons battered at the walls. The numbers were crushing. Hundreds of Hellbrutes, driven like battering rams, smashed at adamantium gates and shield generators. Their built-in saws and drills tore into armor and masonry. Heavy batteries and laser batteries chewed up scrap, but more of the twisted machines surged forward over the wreckage of their kin. Tzeentch sorcerers pried open small flesh portals where the fortress was weakest, vent shafts, logistics tunnels. Screaming pink horrors and bloodletters with flame swords poured through, spreading slaughter in the tight corridors. Loyal Space Marines and mortal auxiliaries were forced into brutal, inch-by-inch fighting for every passage. When the other 4 Gene Seed Primarchs, Vulcan, Chagoris, Ferris Manus, and Corax, arrived, their power armor was streaked with blood. Vulcan spoke first. "Rogal, we need reinforcements. If this continues, we cannot hold. The enemy will break through to Holy Terra. Our front line will be driven to the outer perimeter of the palace. Our main forces now are the Blood Angels, the Imperial Fists, and the White Scars," Ferris Manus added. "The Salamanders, Iron Hands, and Raven Guard have been all but wiped out. The Custodes must be deployed." They looked to Dorn. His expression closed. "They cannot," he said quietly. "Why not? The gates are failing. The Custodes are the Emperor's finest. One custodian can stand against 10 Space Marines. Why are they not engaged?" Vulcan demanded, bewildered. Dorn's shoulders sagged. "Because they are fighting another war of equal peril. The Custodes have already suffered heavy losses. Portions of my own gene seed offspring are committed there as well. We have nothing to spare." He spoke of a strain that reached beyond the walls. The Golden Throne and the Webway were being held together by Magnus, and even that balance was fragile. The Emperor himself was pushing down his darker self. The warp onslaught at the Webway's gates was relentless, and the pressure there left the Custodes no less taxed than those outside. Axis and Guilliman and Kratos were their last hope. Without them, Horus's forces, with their overwhelming weight of numbers, would take Holy Terra. Before they could argue further, Sanguinius arrived on a blast of wind, his great white wings folding as he landed within the palace. He bowed in the direction of his brothers, then turned to Dorn. "I have bad news," he said. Dorn's reply was a weary shrug. "Speak it." "Sacred space above Holy Terra has been lost. Our links to Luna and to Mars are severed," Sanguinius said, leading them toward the palace gates. He had barely finished when a massive, world-shattering crash rolled across the sky. The heavens flamed red, and a roar of battle and pain split the air. A colossal figure, aflame with bloodfire, tore through the atmosphere and struck the palace main gate like a meteor. The shockwave threw defenders and hellbrutes alike. The thing was nearly 5 meters tall, hair like dreadlocks, wielding twin monstrous axes. It looked human, and yet not, horned, demonic, hungering. "Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. Kill the false emperor," it bellowed. Angron, once a gene seed Primarch discovered on Nuceria and now a daemon prince of Khorne, had arrived. He was larger and more terrible than legend, his skin glowing like hot iron, the butcher's nails at his temples pulsing with red light. Bat-like wings of blood flame lashed the air. Each swing of his twin axes, Gorechild, ripped open spatial storms that shredded everything in their path. His single purpose was clear: breach the palace and strike at the Emperor's throne. Bolter fire and batteries chewed at him, but his daemon-warped flesh shrugged off the punishment. He charged toward Dorn's command tower, laying waste to friend and foe alike. The battlefield fell into a mad scramble to meet him. "That's Angron," Sanguinius said, darkening. "The Primarch corrupted by chaos. He ranks among the top fighters of the Gene Seed Primarchs." Vulcan's eyes flared. "Let me end him." He stepped forward, towering and incandescent with righteous fury. Before Dorn could stop him, Vulcan moved out, each of his heavy strides making the palace stones tremble. "Angron," Vulcan roared. His voice was the breaking of the earth itself. "Look what you have become, twisted and traitorous. Stop this madness." Angron answered with a hideous laugh. The butcher's nails burned like hot coals through his skull, and whatever reason remained was ash. "Betrayal? There was never allegiance. I was never theirs." He abandoned his charge on the command tower and turned, a blazing comet of rage aimed straight at Vulcan. Gorechild's spinning teeth shrieked through the air, carrying with them a reek of blood and ruin. Vulcan did not flinch. Despite his massive form, he moved with brutal speed, stepping forward to meet the oncoming hell. He hefted his two-handed power hammer, the Bringer of Dawn, whose head was crowned not with a blunt face, but with ramming spikes and wrought runes. The runes glowed, kindled by Vulcan's wrath and psychic iron will. When hammer met chain axe, the impact was titanic. Sparks and bloodfire scattered as pure force clashed with savage fury. Two of the galaxy's most terrible warriors met in a collision of raw power and unbridled savagery, steel and sorcery, duty and bloodlust, each blow shaking the ground and echoing like doom across Holy Terra. The impact of their weapons detonated like two asteroids smashing together. A visible shockwave ripped outward in a ring, hurling everything within dozens of meters. Rock fragments, twisted metal, and unlucky soldiers, friend or foe, violently through the air, bodies and debris shredded by the furious energy. The solid ground of the Imperial Palace, centered on the strike, cracked in a spiderweb of fissures that spread wildly and sank deep. The two giants staggered back a dozen paces. Beneath Vulcan's feet, the earth sheared away with a thunderous groan. His massive form bowed, knees bending as he absorbed the mountain-shaking impact from Angron. Rocks underfoot were crushed to powder. Vulcan clenched his teeth, veins standing out on his brow as the terrible force from the haft pulsed into him, a force laced with pain, fury, and the fell blessings of Khorne. This opponent was worse than he had expected. The last clash that had seemed even had actually left him on the back foot. Angron snarled a berserk laugh and surged again, twin axes a whirling storm. Vulcan answered in kind. A chain axe screamed through the air toward his waist and belly, while a fanged maw opened to disgorge a sulphurous, bloody chaos breath. Vulcan roared, his body showing the astonishing toughness that had earned him his name. With a practiced twist of wrist, the Bringer of Dawn spun in a precise arc and caught the sweeping chain axe on the haft. Metal rang with a scream as high-speed teeth ground against the hammer. The sound was agony itself. The chaos breath hissed past Vulcan's helm, eating a small statue behind him into a bubbling puddle of slime. "Angron, I will end you here. I will purify you," Vulcan bellowed between strikes. Angron answered only with a more furious roar and an even more violent onslaught. He had abandoned defense completely. His twin axes became a storm of crimson, delivering primal, crushing blows with raw speed and strength. Each swing carried a shriek and a shower of sparks. Every cleave tried to split both Vulcan and the ground beneath him in two. Vulcan was driven into a full defensive posture, the Bringer of Dawn moving with an almost impossibly agile precision. The hammerhead was a blur as he parried, deflected, and absorbed the force of each lethal blow. Runes along the hammerhead flared brighter with every clash, each deflection erupting into a shockwave that fought to purge the chaos filth clinging to Angron. But Angron, in his Daemon Prince aspect, possessed inhuman strength, speed, regenerative power, and an utter indifference to pain. Vulcan's strength ranked him among the top of the Gene Seed Primarchs, yet he felt the strain as never before. Angron's chain axes carved deep grooves into the haft and head of the hammer. Each collision numbed Vulcan's arms. Worse were the blood flames licking Angron's form. No ordinary fire, but manifestations of Khorne's divinity, corrosive and assaulting to mind and armor, gnawing at Vulcan's will. The battlefield seemed cleaved in two by their duel. The two Primarchs' combat zone was an absolute death ring. Rocks crumbled to dust underfoot, shockwaves tore at the air, and anything that approached was ripped apart. Soldiers from both sides instinctively skirted the area, watching the inhuman fight from a distance with awe and fear. At the entrance to the Imperial Palace Command Center, Sanguinius, Rogel Dorn, Chogoris, Ferris Manus, and Corax stood grim-faced, watching the titanic clash. "Vulcan, he's not matched for that," Sanguinius said, worry in his golden eyes. He could see Vulcan trembling with each parry, burn marks blackening his armor from the blood flames. Angron healed quickly in the presence of chaos power and only grew stronger as the fight dragged on. Their strengths might seem comparable, but Angron had greater stamina and a more brutal, relentless assault. "Someone needs to go down and assist," Ferris Manus said coldly, his bionic hand clenched. Rogel Dorn said nothing but watched. Vulcan was holding the spearhead of the enemy back, buying time, but that was all. The Hellbeasts still battered the gate, Daemon's continued slaughter within, and Horus's main force had yet to appear. Since the battle's start, aside from Angron, no other traitor Primarch had shown Dorne's deepest concern. He knew Lorgar of the Wordbearers had been captured and escorted by Robout Guilliman, and that Fulgrim had been slain on Istvan Foth by Axis. The remaining enemy Primarchs were Horus, Mortarion, Alfarius, the unnamed 11th, and Conrad. We must reinforce the other defenses at once, Dorne decided. Korax, you are the fastest. Go deal with those warp gates and the demons within the fortress. Chogoris, your sons are masters of mobility. Harass the Hellbeast swarms on the flanks and relieve pressure at the front. Ferris, you and I will take the main gate. Sanguinius, he met the Archangel's gaze. I leave this to you. If Vulcan falters, support him immediately and watch the sky. Sanguinius nodded, white wings lifting as if to soar. The spear of Telesto gleamed in his hand. On the field, Angron brought down a crushing, bone-smashing cleave. Vulcan went to one knee under the force, rock and dust exploding outward. Angron drove his hoof down, a daemon-cloven foot wreathed in blood flames slamming into Vulcan's chest. Vulcan's pupils narrowed. In an instant, he drove the head of the Bringer of Dawn across his breast. The impact sounded like a battering ram. Vulcan was hurled backward and slammed into a massive adamantium wall of the Imperial Palace. The wall buckled with a great concavity and spidering cracks. Vulcan spat a gout of golden-tinged blood onto the stone. A scorched hoofprint modeled his cuirass. Sanguinius, the Archangel cried, wings spreading as he dove. Angron roared his triumph and raised his axes to deliver the killing blow. At that critical instant, a grim determination flared across Vulcan's face. He was not without counter. He activated a hidden rune on the chest plate of his power armor. The runes on the Bringer of Dawn's hammerhead flared with blinding light. A vast, searing heat wave burst outward from Vulcan, a psychic fire forged of elemental fury as if to make stars. White, incandescent, molten psychic rock condensed and poured forth in a torrent several meters wide, erupting like a volcano directly into Angron's path. Angron's charge hit that sudden, destructive flood and halted. The demonized skin sizzled where molten white rock met blood flame. The two powers collided and almost annihilated one another. Angron howled, thrown back and skidding, plowing two deep furrows through the earth. Vulcan seized the pause. He wrenched himself from the wall's indentation and leaned on his hammer, heaving breaths. His chest throbbed, his armor was shredded, but his eyes still burned with unbreakable fire. Angron shook scorched head and arms, madness deepening in his bloodshot gaze. Vulcan's counterattack had inflamed him. The blood flames around the demon prince leapt several meters high. The red glare of the butcher's nails flashed. He raised his axes again, preparing an attack even fouler and more savage. Sanguinius transformed into a golden streak and dove down, arriving before Vulcan. His white wings were about to settle beside his brother, to stand shoulder to shoulder against Angron. A different, equally soul-shaking aura fell over the battlefield. A tall, purple daemon strode into view, once the Lord of the Phoenix, the Primarch of the Emperor's children, Fulgrim. Now he was something else, a full daemon. Though his material body had been destroyed by Axis, his essence had been reborn in daemon form. His violet skin shimmered like mother of pearl. Living, ornate armor clung to him like a blasphemous second skin. His face remained devastatingly beautiful, but his eyes burned with inhuman violet fire and a cruel, seductive smile played on his lips. Huge purple bat wings unfurled from his back. "Heh, my dear Sanguinius," Fulgrim purred. "My master bids that I take you to his pleasure palace and enjoy you thoroughly." "Fulgrim, weren't you killed by Axis?" Sanguinius asked, frowning. "Killed me?" Fulgrim laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Yes, Axis killed me. He slew my flesh and the demon that once occupied my body, but now I am reborn." Chapter 280, Blood Ancestor Sanguinius, the Morning Star arrives. "My master granted me new life. I am stronger now, more beautiful. I am pleasure, I am pain, I am eternal transformation." Fulgrim spread the vast, leathery wings of his demon form and laughed like a mad god. In a flash of violet lightning, he lunged at Sanguinius, the blasphemous demon sword lair tracing a deadly arc aimed straight for the Archangel's heart. Sanguinius snorted. Spear in one hand, sword in the other, he met Fulgrim without a flicker of fear. The Archangel and the Daemon Prince danced across the sky. Purple and white light met and cleaved into two colliding points of brilliance. But this Sanguinius was not the same as in the old timeline. When Axis had met Sanguinius, Guilliman and the others, he had gifted Sanguinius 4 fully formed spirit tree fruits. Sanguinius had consumed them all. His life force now surged beyond the ordinary limits of the material universe. His warp essence stirred beneath it, and he grew stronger still. A flash of crimson threaded Sanguinius's gaze. His fighting style shifted from elegant grace to something feral. Bloodlust sharpened his movements. 2 sharp fangs bared at the corners of his mouth. Just as the afflicted blood angels did in legend, Sanguinius's body and mind bent towards something monstrous. His golden hair darkened to blood red, his eyes flooded with a single red glow, his fingernails became talons, his face drawn and paler than before. "Look, brother," Fulgrim mocked as he parried, "this is your true self. Beautiful. You call yourself a noble archangel, yet your gene children are a brood of vampires. Think the warp cursed them? No, Sanguinius. You cursed them. It is in your blood, in your warp essence. You are the origin, the blood angel, the ancestor of vampires." The words burrowed in. Fulgrim told a story the Emperor had erased, of an archangel who descended to protect mortals, only to be broken by their baseness and hunger until he too became a bloodthirster. Sanguinius's white wings darkened under a wash of crimson, pure feathers began to redden. He answered with a bestial roar, hoarse and raw. The spirit tree fruits had altered him deeply, his very nature twisted. In a blur of crimson, Sanguinius closed on Fulgrim. Claws raked through daemon flesh and punched through the purple daemon prince's chest, ripping out a beating heart. Fulgrim detonated like an unholy supernova in the sky, but even as his form dissolved, his laughter echoed. "Let the mortals see what you truly are. My dear brother, will they still believe you the noble archangel? You and your gene seed are of one cloth, bloodthirsty vampires." Below, the mortals cheered, assuming Sanguinius had slain a daemon. The blood angels' faces, however, had already gone hard. The awakening of their gene father hammered at the most primitive rhythms of their gene seed. Some began to twitch toward frenzy, licking their lips, eyes reddening. Others held fast. Those of the Legion's librarium, psychically strong and trained, mustered will and power to choke back the rising vampiric frenzy. A ring of them formed around their brothers who were starting to change, fangs sprouting, eyes glazing crimson. "Hold yourselves," one librarian snapped. "Control your hunger. Restrain those who are losing themselves. I will go to the Gene Father." From the ranks rose another figure, Sanguino, a pure-winged archangel fashioned by Axis from cultivation seeds, Sanguinius's blood and the Legion's gene seed. He bore the archangel's likeness and carried ki, vital energy, that grew with cultivation. The spirit tree fruit had amplified him such that, in sheer destructive potential, he rivaled and even surpassed Sanguinius for the moment. Sanguino burst upward in a column of white flame. His chi energy seared and vaporized the lingering purple of Fulgrim's presence, expelling a lesser daemon prince back into the warp. As Sanguinius teetered toward a mad plunge into the crowd to feed, Sanguino wrapped him in a pillar of life energy, forcing back the bloodlust long enough to hold him. With his massive white wings, he shielded the mortals below so none could see the archangel's corruption. "Gene Father, calm," Sanguino pleaded, pouring his chi into Sanguinius. "Return to yourself. Do not be enslaved by this hunger." The chi took. Under its wash, Sanguinius recovered a shred of clarity. On the palace platform, Vulcan struggled to his feet. Pain in his chest and the ruined joints of his power armor slowed him. Angron charged like a berserk chariot, chain axe raised. The Prince of Anger bared teeth and roared. Vulcan steeled himself and met Angron's assault with only his bare hands, fists of iron slamming into the frenzied Primarch. Bone-jarring blows rang out, fist against flesh, fist against axe, and with each crash the agony in Vulcan's chest flared anew. He held on by sheer will as Angron's blood flames licked and seared. From the Imperial Palace Command Dice Rogel Dorn, Ferris Manus and Corax watched, faces split with worry. The battlefield was tipping. Sanguinius had been driven toward what Fulgrim said he was. Vulcan lay wounded and unarmed under Angron's onslaught. Dorn barked orders. "We cannot settle the sky. Trust that Sanguino can keep the Gene Father. Chagoris and Ferris to Vulcan. Corax and I will hold here." Ferris Manus and Chagoris, 2 of the Gene Seed Primarchs, moved to obey. but a green figure and a blue figure stepped into their path. Mortarion of the Death Guard and the Primarch of the 11th Legion. Mortarion's scythe glinted. "Where do you go, brothers?" he taunted. "Our opponents are us now." The 11th Primarch smiled and called, "Ferris Manus, come play." The traitor Primarchs had begun to act. Then the sky above Holy Terra went black. A colossal void swallowed stars as a warship blotted the heavens. The vengeful spirit. The noise of battle stilled for a heartbeat. Even those still locked in combat felt its shadow. Rogol Dorn's voice came low, threaded with something like despair. The vengeful spirit. Horus Lupercal had arrived. The great ship drifted above the planet, but Horus did not leap down into the fray. His presence sent a clear message. No more reinforcements would come. The final battle was upon them. Deep in the palace, the Emperor stirred. The dark influence that had gripped him receded as he felt the call of destiny. "Magnus, I must leave for a while. The Golden Throne and the Webway are yours," he told his son. "Father, go. I will guard the throne. The Webway will hold while you are gone," Magnus replied with a long, heavy breath. Years on the throne had taught him much, and he understood his father's burden. It was the only way to preserve Axis, the fragile hope for humanity. The Emperor summoned his custodes. "Deliver my decree. Summon Micardo," he said, ever cautious, ensuring that if anything should happen to him, Magnus would not be alone in defending the throne. Micardo, who was processing imperial matters, accepted the command without hesitation and hurried to the Golden Throne. The two old friends met with a wordless look and tacit agreement. "Go, Neos, and rest assured," the Emperor said. Rogol Dorn was called in for audience. No sooner had the summons gone out than the very fabric of space flared again, as if the webway itself were being rent. A light, purer, more brilliant, and filled with hope than the shadowed arrival of the vengeful spirit, pierced the warp mist over Terra. Through the torn veil came a ship unlike any seen before, a colossal battleship, its hull like the dawn, radiant and commanding, cleaving through reality. Golden filigree flowed over its plates like a river of stars. At its prow, the great Aquila spread its wings and shone beneath Terra's dark sky. This time, the morning star did not appear as a sphere. It hung in Star Destroyer configuration, immense and unapologetic. "It's the morning star," Dorn breathed, voice full of an impossible hope. Axis and his son had come at last.